Progress beats perfection. Progress beats perfection means choosing movement over stagnation. It represents the understanding that taking imperfect action consistently will always outweigh waiting for the perfect moment or perfect solution. This principle acknowledges a fundamental truth about human achievement. Perfection is often an illusion that paralyzes us. When we wait for everything to be exactly right, we end up doing nothing at all. Meanwhile, those who embrace progress, even messy and incomplete progress, move forward and learn from their experiences. Think of it like learning to ride a bicycle. No one expects to mount the bike and ride perfectly on the first attempt. Instead, we wobble, we fall, we get back up. Each attempt teaches us something new. The scraped knees and moments of imbalance are not failures. They are data points that guide us toward eventual mastery. In professional settings, this principle manifests as shipping products that can be improved later rather than endlessly refining them in development. Writers publish drafts knowing they are not perfect. Artists share their work while still learning their craft. Students submit assignments that represent their current understanding rather than waiting until they know everything. The beauty of progress lies in its cumulative nature. Small, consistent improvements compound over time. A daily practice of writing just one paragraph eventually creates a book. Regular exercise sessions, even short ones, build strength and endurance. These incremental advances create momentum that perfectionism destroys. Progress beats perfection teaches us that done is better than perfect. It reminds us that growth happens in the doing, not in the planning or the worrying. Forward motion, however imperfect, creates opportunities that standing still never will. Own your slice of the mess first. Own your slice of the mess first means taking responsibility for your part in any problem before pointing fingers at others. It represents the courage to look inward first when things go wrong. This principle acknowledges that most conflicts and failures involve multiple people, and the only person you can truly control is yourself. When relationships break down, projects fail, or misunderstandings arise, our natural instinct is to blame external factors. We focus on what others did wrong. We highlight their mistakes. We defend our own actions. This approach rarely leads to real solutions or personal growth. Taking ownership of your slice means asking different questions. What could I have done differently? How did my actions contribute to this situation? Where did I miss opportunities to communicate better or act more thoughtfully? These questions are uncomfortable but powerful. This does not mean accepting blame for everything that goes wrong. It means recognizing that you always have some influence over outcomes, even when others share responsibility. Maybe you could have spoken up sooner. Perhaps you ignored warning signs. You might have made assumptions instead of asking clarifying questions. The magic happens when you model this behavior. When you own your part first, others often follow suit. Defensiveness drops. Blame shifts to problem solving. Teams become stronger. Relationships deepen. Personal growth accelerates. Owning your slice creates psychological safety for everyone involved. It shows maturity and builds trust. People respect those who can admit their mistakes without making excuses. Mirror feelings first, fixes can wait. Mirror feelings first, fixes can wait means acknowledging and reflecting someone's emotions before jumping into problem-solving mode. It represents the understanding that people need to feel heard and understood before they can receive advice or solutions. This principle recognizes that emotional validation often matters more than immediate fixes. When someone shares a problem with us, our instinct is to help by offering solutions. We want to fix things quickly. We jump straight to advice, suggestions, or logical analysis. While well-intentioned, this approach often misses what the person truly needs in that moment. Most people sharing their struggles are not looking for immediate solutions. They need someone to understand their emotional experience first. They want validation that their feelings make sense. They need confirmation that someone truly sees their pain, frustration, or confusion. Mirroring feelings sounds like this. That sounds incredibly frustrating. I can hear how disappointed you are. What an overwhelming situation to be in. These simple acknowledgments create connection and trust. They show the person that their emotional experience matters. Only after feelings are mirrored and validated can meaningful problem solving begin. When people feel understood, they become more open to suggestions. Their defensive walls come down. They can think more clearly about potential solutions. This principle applies in parenting, friendships, romantic relationships, and professional settings. A frustrated employee needs acknowledgement before feedback. An upset child needs comfort before correction. A stressed partner needs empathy before advice. Mirroring feelings first builds stronger relationships and creates space for more effective problem solving later. Spot potential, name it aloud. Spot potential, name it aloud means recognizing the strengths and possibilities in others and verbally acknowledging them. It represents the practice of seeing beyond current limitations to identify what someone could become. This principle understands that potential often remains dormant until someone else notices it and speaks it into existence. Most people walk through life unaware of their own capabilities. They focus on their weaknesses and limitations. They see what they cannot do rather than what they might accomplish. Meanwhile, others around them can often see strengths and talents that remain invisible to the person themselves. When you spot potential in someone, naming it aloud creates transformation. Your words become a mirror that reflects back possibilities they never considered. A shy student might discover they have leadership qualities when a teacher points it out. A struggling employee might find confidence when a manager highlights their problem-solving abilities. The key is specificity. Instead of generic praise like, "You're smart," try, "You have a gift for asking questions that get to the heart of complex problems." Rather than, "You're creative," say, "You see connections between ideas that others miss completely." This practice requires genuine observation and authentic recognition. People can sense when praise is hollow or manipulative. But when you truly see someone's potential and name it with sincerity, something powerful happens. They begin to see themselves differently. They start believing in possibilities they never imagined. Spotting and naming potential creates ripple effects. The person you encourage often goes on to encourage others. Your words become seeds that grow into achievements, confidence, and positive change that extends far beyond the original moment. Compliment effort, not just outcome. Compliment effort, not just outcome means recognizing and praising the work someone puts in rather than only celebrating their final results. It represents the understanding that acknowledging the process builds stronger motivation and character than focusing solely on achievements. This principle recognizes that effort is within everyone's control, while outcomes often depend on factors beyond our influence. When we only praise results, we create fragile confidence. People become dependent on winning or succeeding to feel valued. They avoid challenges where failure is possible. They stop trying when results do not come easily. This outcome-focused praise actually discourages risk-taking and learning. Effort-based compliments sound different. I noticed how many different approaches you tried on that problem. Your persistence through those difficult chapters really shows. The way you kept practicing even when it felt frustrating demonstrates real commitment. These acknowledgments recognize qualities that lead to long-term success. Children especially benefit from effort-focused praise. When a child struggles with math but keeps working through problems, acknowledging their persistence matters more than praising the grade. When someone learns a new skill, recognizing their dedication to practice builds intrinsic motivation that lasts beyond any single performance. This approach works in professional settings too. Acknowledging a team member's thorough research process, creative problem-solving approach, or willingness to collaborate builds workplace culture that values growth over perfection. People feel appreciated for who they are becoming, not just what they have accomplished. Complimenting effort creates a growth mindset. It teaches people that their actions matter. It builds resilience and encourages continued learning even when results are disappointing. Keep your humor fresh. Keep your humor fresh means avoiding repetitive jokes and outdated references while staying current and genuine in your comedic approach. It represents the understanding that humor is most effective when it feels spontaneous, relevant, and authentic to the moment. This principle recognizes that stale humor can damage relationships rather than strengthen them. Many people develop a comedy comfort zone. They rely on the same jokes, stories, or references that worked in the past. They repeat catchphrases or fall back on familiar humor patterns. While these might have been funny once, overuse makes them predictable and tiresome for others. Fresh humor requires awareness of your audience and context. What made your colleagues laugh last month might feel tired today. References that resonated with friends in college might not land with your current social circle. Cultural moments shift quickly, and humor that felt current can become dated overnight. The key is observational awareness. Fresh humor often comes from noticing something new about everyday situations. It emerges from genuine reactions to current events, shared experiences, or unexpected connections. This type of humor feels alive because it responds to the present moment rather than recycling the past. Keeping humor fresh also means reading the room. Sometimes a situation calls for light-hearted jokes. Other times, wit needs to be more subtle or sophisticated. The freshest humor adapts to the energy and needs of the people around you. This principle does not mean constantly chasing trends or forcing jokes. Instead, it encourages genuine, responsive humor that connects with people in authentic ways. Fresh humor builds relationships by showing you are present, aware, and genuinely engaged with the world around you. Listen to understand, not to reply. Listen to understand, not to reply means focusing completely on comprehending what someone is saying rather than preparing your response while they speak. It represents the practice of genuine curiosity about another person's perspective instead of waiting for your turn to talk. This principle recognizes that true listening is rare and transformative for relationships. Most conversations involve people taking turns to speak rather than genuine communication. While one person talks, the other mentally rehearses their comeback, advice, or story. They listen for keywords that trigger their own experiences. They judge, analyze, or formulate responses before the speaker finishes their thought. This approach misses the deeper layers of communication. People share not just facts but emotions, concerns, and experiences that deserve full attention. When you listen to understand, you hear what someone is really saying beneath their words. You notice their tone, pauses, and the feelings they might struggle to express directly. Understanding focused listening requires setting aside your own agenda. It means asking clarifying questions instead of making assumptions. Help me understand what that felt like for you. What was the most challenging part of that experience? These questions show genuine interest in their perspective rather than rushing toward solutions or judgments. This type of listening creates profound connection. People feel valued when someone truly hears them. They open up more honestly. They trust you with deeper thoughts and feelings. Relationships strengthen because both people feel genuinely seen and understood. Listening to understand also makes your eventual responses more meaningful. When you truly comprehend someone's situation, your advice, support, or feedback becomes more relevant and helpful. Try to make win-win always. Try to make win-win always means seeking solutions where everyone involved benefits rather than viewing interactions as zero-sum competitions. It represents the mindset that mutual success is possible and preferable to victories that come at someone else's expense. This principle recognizes that sustainable relationships and long-term success require collaboration rather than domination. Many people approach negotiations, conflicts, and decisions with a scarcity mindset. They believe that for them to win, someone else must lose. They fight for their share of a supposedly fixed pie. This approach creates adversarial relationships and often leads to outcomes where everyone feels partially defeated. Win-win thinking expands possibilities. Instead of dividing existing resources, it looks for ways to create more value for everyone. A salary negotiation becomes a conversation about mutual benefit. A household chore discussion focuses on systems that work for all family members. Business partnerships explore how both parties can achieve their goals together. This approach requires creativity and genuine concern for others' needs. You must understand what success looks like from their perspective. What are their constraints, goals, and concerns? How can solutions address multiple interests simultaneously? Sometimes this means expanding timelines, finding alternative resources, or discovering unexpected common ground. Win-win outcomes build stronger relationships because nobody feels exploited or defeated. People become more willing to collaborate in the future. Trust increases when others know you care about their success too. These relationships become resources for future challenges and opportunities. The practice also recognizes that true wins often take time to develop. Quick victories that harm others tend to create problems later. Sustainable success comes from building systems where everyone thrives. Pass the praise and hold the fault. Pass the praise and hold the fault means giving credit to others when things go well while taking personal responsibility when problems arise. It represents a leadership mindset that builds trust and loyalty by protecting team members from blame while ensuring they receive recognition for successes. This principle understands that great leaders amplify others' contributions and shield them from unnecessary criticism. Most people do the opposite. When projects succeed, they highlight their own contributions or take subtle credit. When things fail, they point to external factors, other people's mistakes, or circumstances beyond their control. This pattern erodes trust and creates defensive team dynamics where everyone protects themselves first. Passing praise means actively directing recognition toward the people who contributed to positive outcomes. Sarah's research made this presentation possible. The team's collaboration is what solved this problem. Miguel's attention to detail prevented major issues. This approach makes others feel valued and builds their confidence. Holding fault means accepting responsibility for failures, even when others share blame. This does not mean falsely claiming you caused problems you did not create. Instead, it means focusing on your role, your decisions, and what you could have done differently. It means protecting your team from external criticism while working internally to address real issues. This practice creates psychological safety. Team members become more willing to take risks, share ideas, and admit mistakes when they know their leader will support them. Innovation increases because people feel protected from blame. Collaboration improves because everyone understands they will receive credit for their contributions. Leaders who pass praise and hold fault earn deep loyalty and respect from their teams. Prioritize presence over pings. Prioritize presence over pings means choosing face-to-face attention and real-world engagement over constant digital notifications and online distractions. It represents the practice of being fully present with people and situations rather than dividing attention between the physical moment and virtual demands. This principle recognizes that meaningful connection requires undivided attention in an age of endless digital interruption. Modern life bombards us with pings, buzzes, and alerts. Text messages, social media notifications, emails, and app updates create a constant stream of digital demands. These interruptions fragment our attention and pull us away from the people and experiences directly in front of us. When you prioritize presence, you make conscious choices about attention. During conversations, phones stay face down or put away entirely. At family dinners, devices remain in other rooms. During work meetings, laptops close when not directly needed for the discussion. These small actions signal that the present moment and present people matter most. Presence requires intentional boundaries with technology. This might mean setting specific times for checking messages rather than responding immediately to every ping. It could involve creating phone-free zones in your home or establishing digital Sabbaths where connectivity takes a backseat to real-world experiences. The benefits compound quickly. Relationships deepen when people feel they have your complete attention. Children feel more valued when parents engage without digital distractions. Colleagues appreciate focused collaboration without competing against smartphones for attention. Prioritizing presence also improves your own experience. You notice details, emotions, and moments that constant digital checking causes you to miss. Life becomes richer when you fully engage with it rather than documenting or sharing it online. Decline as you'd wish. Decline as you'd wish means saying no to requests in the same respectful, considerate way you would want others to decline your invitations or proposals. It represents the understanding that how you refuse requests matters as much as the refusal itself. This principle recognizes that maintaining relationships requires thoughtful communication even when you cannot fulfill someone's needs. Many people struggle with saying no gracefully. They either avoid giving clear answers, hoping the request will disappear, or they deliver blunt rejections that damage relationships. Some people over-explain their reasons, creating unnecessary justifications. Others become defensive or apologetic in ways that make the situation uncomfortable for everyone involved. Declining as you would wish means considering the other person's feelings while staying true to your boundaries. You acknowledge their request with respect. You give a clear, honest answer without excessive explanation. You express appreciation for being considered, even when you cannot participate. This approach sounds like genuine responses rather than scripted politeness. I'm honored you thought of me for this project, but I cannot commit the time it deserves right now. Thank you for the invitation. I have other commitments that evening. I appreciate you considering me, but this is not something I can take on. The key is authenticity without cruelty. You do not need to invent elaborate excuses or justify your choices extensively. A simple, honest explanation respects both your boundaries and their dignity. You also avoid leaving false hope by being clear about your decision. Declining thoughtfully preserves relationships for future opportunities. People remember how you treat them when you cannot help, not just when you can. Step aside without being asked. Step aside without being asked means recognizing when someone else is better suited for a role, opportunity, or moment and gracefully making space for them without waiting for external pressure. It represents the wisdom to know when your presence might prevent someone else's growth or success. This principle understands that true leadership sometimes involves removing yourself from the spotlight. Many people cling to positions, opportunities, or moments of attention even when they recognize someone else might handle them better. Pride, fear, or habit keeps them in roles that no longer serve the greater good. They wait for others to push them aside rather than making the mature choice to step back voluntarily. Stepping aside requires self-awareness and humility. Maybe you notice a team member has developed skills that surpass your own in a particular area. Perhaps a younger colleague brings fresh energy and ideas that would benefit a project more than your experience. Sometimes a situation calls for different strengths than the ones you possess. This practice shows up in many contexts. A parent steps back to let their adult child handle their own challenges. A mentor creates space for their protege to lead. A manager delegates important presentations to team members who need visibility. A friend lets someone else organize the group activity they would usually coordinate. The magic happens in the timing and manner. Stepping aside gracefully, before being asked, demonstrates emotional intelligence and genuine care for outcomes over ego. It builds trust because people see you prioritize collective success over personal recognition. This approach also creates opportunities for your own growth by freeing you to focus on areas where your contributions are most valuable. Lesson first, label later. Lesson first, label later means focusing on what can be learned from a situation before categorizing it as good or bad, success or failure. It represents the practice of extracting wisdom and growth from experiences before rushing to judge them. This principle recognizes that premature labeling often prevents us from seeing the full value of what we have encountered. Our minds naturally want to sort experiences into neat categories. We quickly decide whether something was positive or negative, worthwhile or wasteful, smart or foolish. This instant labeling gives us a sense of control and understanding, but it often closes our minds to deeper insights. When you prioritize the lesson first, you approach experiences with curiosity rather than judgment. A failed project becomes a source of knowledge about planning, communication, or resource management. A difficult relationship teaches you about boundaries, empathy, or personal values. Even painful experiences offer insights about resilience, priorities, or inner strength. This approach requires patience and reflection. Instead of immediately declaring something a disaster or triumph, you ask different questions. What did this teach me about myself? How might this experience help me in the future? What would I do differently if faced with a similar situation? The labels you eventually assign become more nuanced and useful when they come after careful consideration. You might discover that what initially seemed like a failure actually provided crucial preparation for later success. A situation you first viewed as purely negative might reveal unexpected gifts or growth opportunities. Lesson first, label later creates a learning mindset that transforms every experience into potential wisdom. This approach builds resilience because you always find value, even in difficult circumstances. Share the clouds as often as sunshine. Share the clouds as often as sunshine means being honest about struggles and difficulties, not just highlighting positive moments when communicating with others. It represents the practice of authentic vulnerability that includes both the challenging and joyful aspects of your experience. This principle recognizes that genuine connection requires showing your complete human experience, not just the polished highlights. Most people curate their shared experiences heavily. They post vacation photos but not work stress. They mention promotions but skip the rejection letters. They talk about relationship milestones but avoid discussing conflicts or doubts. This selective sharing creates unrealistic expectations and prevents deeper connections with others. When you share clouds alongside sunshine, you give others permission to be human too. Your honesty about struggles helps friends feel less alone in their difficulties. Your openness about setbacks normalizes the reality that everyone faces challenges. This vulnerability creates space for authentic conversations rather than surface-level exchanges. Sharing clouds does not mean complaining constantly or dumping problems on others without consideration. It means including honest moments in your regular communication. This week has been tough with the new project demands. I'm feeling uncertain about this decision I need to make. That experience was harder than I expected, but I learned something valuable. This practice builds stronger relationships because people connect with your humanity, not your highlight reel. They see you as someone who understands struggle, which makes them more likely to seek your support during their own difficult times. Your willingness to be real encourages others to drop their masks too. Sharing both clouds and sunshine creates authentic community where people support each other through all of life's weather. Let one in, civilization endures. Let one in, civilization endures means making space for someone who is excluded, marginalized, or struggling to belong, understanding that inclusive acts preserve and strengthen our collective humanity. It represents the recognition that civilization's survival depends not on building walls but on extending bridges to those who need them most. This principle acknowledges that our shared future relies on each person's willingness to include rather than exclude others. Human progress has always depended on people choosing inclusion over exclusion. Throughout history, individuals who opened doors for others created the foundation for broader social advancement. A teacher who believed in a struggling student. A neighbor who welcomed newcomers. A colleague who advocated for someone being overlooked. These small acts of inclusion ripple outward and shape entire communities. Letting one in requires courage because it often goes against group dynamics. Exclusion feels safer and more natural to many people. Including someone different, struggling, or unpopular can feel risky. You might face criticism from others who prefer maintaining existing boundaries. But civilization advances when individuals choose moral courage over social comfort. This practice shows up in countless daily moments. Inviting the quiet person into the conversation. Defending someone being unfairly criticized. Offering help to a neighbor who seems isolated. Supporting a colleague who is being marginalized. Each act of inclusion strengthens the social fabric that holds communities together. The phrase reminds us that civilization is fragile and requires active maintenance. When we consistently choose exclusion, we erode the foundations of cooperative society. When we choose inclusion, especially for one person at a time, we contribute to humanity's continued progress and survival. Right pun, real diplomacy. Right pun, real diplomacy means using well-timed humor to diffuse tension and build bridges in difficult situations, understanding that the perfect joke can accomplish what serious conversation cannot. It represents the skill of finding lightness that brings people together rather than divides them further. This principle recognizes that diplomatic humor requires careful timing, genuine warmth, and respect for everyone involved. Puns and wordplay might seem trivial, but they serve important social functions. A well-placed pun can break uncomfortable silence, redirect heated arguments, or help people find common ground through shared laughter. The key lies in reading the room correctly and ensuring your humor includes rather than excludes people. Real diplomacy through humor requires genuine affection for the people involved. Mean-spirited jokes disguised as diplomacy actually increase tension. But when people sense your humor comes from a place of caring, they respond with openness. Your playful comment becomes a gift that lightens everyone's mood. The timing matters enormously. A pun that lands perfectly during a tense family dinner can restore connection. The same joke at the wrong moment might seem insensitive or dismissive. Diplomatic humor waits for the right opening when people are ready to smile together. This approach works in professional settings too. A gentle, self-deprecating joke can ease awkwardness after a mistake. A clever wordplay observation can help colleagues bond over shared challenges. The humor becomes a tool for building relationships rather than just entertainment. Right pun, real diplomacy transforms conflicts into connections. It shows that you care enough about relationships to find ways to bring joy into difficult moments. Never one-up vulnerability. Never one-up vulnerability means resisting the urge to share a bigger, more dramatic version of your own struggles when someone opens up to you about their pain. It represents the understanding that vulnerability is not a competition and that people sharing difficult experiences need acknowledgement, not comparison. This principle recognizes that one-upping vulnerable moments destroys trust and prevents genuine connection. When someone shares something personal and difficult, our natural response often involves relating through our own experiences. That reminds me of when I went through something similar, but even worse. We mean well, thinking that sharing our own struggles shows understanding and solidarity. Instead, this response shifts focus away from their experience onto our own story. One-upping vulnerability happens in subtle ways too. Someone mentions feeling overwhelmed at work, and you immediately describe your even busier schedule. A friend shares anxiety about a relationship, and you launch into your more complicated romantic situation. These responses, while well-intentioned, communicate that their feelings are not important enough to hold space for. Vulnerable moments require witnessing, not competing. When someone trusts you with their pain, they need you to stay present with their experience. They need acknowledgement, empathy, and sometimes just silence that honors what they have shared. Your own related experiences can be valuable to share later, but not as immediate responses that overshadow their disclosure. The practice builds deeper trust because people feel truly seen and heard. They learn they can bring their authentic struggles to you without having them minimized or redirected. This creates safety for even more meaningful sharing in the future. Never one-upping vulnerability shows respect for the courage it takes to be honest about pain. Be the one who notices. Be the one who notices means developing the habit of observing and acknowledging the small details, changes, and efforts that others often overlook. It represents the practice of paying attention to people and situations with genuine care and then speaking up about what you see. This principle recognizes that most people feel invisible in their daily lives and that noticing creates profound connection and validation. Most people move through their days feeling unseen. They make small improvements, try new approaches, or struggle with hidden challenges without anyone acknowledging their efforts. Co-workers change their hairstyle and no one mentions it. Friends make progress on personal goals that go unrecognized. Family members contribute in ways that become invisible through routine. Being the one who notices requires intentional attention. You observe when someone seems tired, excited, or different than usual. You see new skills developing, extra efforts being made, or subtle signs that someone needs support. You notice environmental changes, seasonal shifts, or moments of beauty that others rush past. The power lies not just in noticing but in saying something. You seem really energized about this project. I noticed you stayed late to help finish that presentation. That color looks wonderful on you. You have been working so hard on improving your presentation skills. These simple acknowledgments validate people's experiences and efforts. This practice creates ripple effects. When people feel noticed, they notice others more. Your attention becomes a model for deeper engagement with the world. Communities become more connected when individuals practice genuine observation and acknowledgement. Being the one who notices transforms ordinary interactions into moments of recognition and care that people remember long after the conversation ends. Timing matters more than truth. Timing matters more than truth means recognizing that even accurate information can be harmful or ineffective when shared at the wrong moment. It represents the wisdom of knowing when to speak and when to wait, understanding that the best truths require the right circumstances to be received well. This principle acknowledges that effective communication depends as much on timing as on accuracy. Many people believe that truth should always be shared immediately and directly. They pride themselves on brutal honesty, thinking that facts alone are sufficient for good communication. However, truth delivered at the wrong time often creates damage rather than understanding. A person in crisis cannot process feedback about their performance. Someone celebrating success does not need criticism in that moment. Good timing considers the other person's emotional state, capacity, and readiness to receive information. A difficult conversation works better when both people are calm and have adequate time. Constructive feedback lands more effectively when someone is in a learning mindset rather than defensive or overwhelmed. This principle does not advocate for dishonesty or avoiding difficult conversations. Instead, it encourages strategic patience that serves the relationship and the ultimate goal of understanding. Sometimes waiting a day, a week, or even longer allows truth to be received with the attention and consideration it deserves. Professional settings especially benefit from this approach. Performance reviews, project feedback, and strategic discussions require timing that maximizes receptiveness. Personal relationships also thrive when difficult truths are shared thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Timing matters more than truth because well-timed honesty creates connection and growth, while poorly timed truth often creates resistance and resentment. Kindness is doing not offering. Kindness is doing not offering means taking action to help others rather than simply making vague promises or asking what they need. It represents the understanding that genuine kindness involves observing what needs to be done and quietly doing it, without requiring the other person to manage your help or make specific requests. This principle recognizes that true generosity eliminates burdens rather than creating additional emotional labor. Many people express kindness through offers. Let me know if you need anything. Call me if I can help. I'm here for you. These statements feel supportive, but they place responsibility on the struggling person to identify, articulate, and request specific assistance. Someone dealing with grief, illness, or crisis often lacks the mental energy to manage other people's offers of help. Doing-based kindness observes and acts. You notice that someone's lawn needs mowing and quietly take care of it. You see a colleague struggling with a project and research solutions without being asked. You bring specific groceries to new parents rather than asking what they need. You shovel a neighbor's walkway during a snowstorm without announcing your intention. This approach requires attention and initiative. You must notice what needs doing and feel comfortable taking action without permission. Some people worry about overstepping boundaries, but most struggling individuals deeply appreciate practical help that arrives without negotiation. The key is choosing actions that genuinely reduce burdens rather than creating social obligations. Effective doing kindness requires no thanks, no reciprocation, and no ongoing relationship management. It simply makes life a little easier for someone who needs support. Kindness through doing demonstrates care more powerfully than words because it proves your attention and investment in someone's well-being. Rest is strategy, not a reward. Rest is strategy, not a reward means viewing rest as an essential component of high performance rather than something you earn only after completing all your work. It represents the understanding that recovery and restoration are necessary investments in your capacity, not luxuries you indulge in when everything else is finished. This principle recognizes that sustainable success requires intentional rest as part of your overall approach to life and work. Most people treat rest as something they deserve only after proving their productivity. They work until exhaustion, then feel guilty about taking breaks. They schedule rest last, after all other priorities are handled. This approach creates a cycle where rest becomes increasingly rare and less effective because it only happens during states of near collapse. Strategic rest happens proactively, before you reach exhaustion. It involves scheduling recovery time as seriously as you schedule important meetings. This might mean taking short breaks throughout the workday, protecting weekends for genuine restoration, or planning vacations well in advance regardless of project timelines. Rest as strategy recognizes different types of recovery needs. Sometimes you need physical rest through sleep or low activity time. Other situations call for mental rest through activities that engage different parts of your brain. Emotional rest might involve time with supportive people or solitary reflection. The strategic approach also considers timing and duration. Brief, regular rest periods often provide better restoration than long breaks after extended overwork. Consistent sleep schedules support better performance than erratic patterns of exhaustion followed by recovery. When you treat rest as strategy, your overall performance improves because you maintain higher baseline energy and focus. You make better decisions, communicate more effectively, and sustain effort over longer periods. Offer last slice and mean it. Offer last slice and mean it means genuinely giving others the final portion of something desirable without secretly hoping they will decline or feeling resentful if they accept. It represents the practice of authentic generosity where your offer comes from true willingness to share rather than social obligation or expectation of refusal. This principle recognizes that meaningful generosity requires sincerity and genuine detachment from the outcome. Many people offer the last slice of pizza, final cookie, or remaining portion of something good while secretly hoping the other person will politely decline. They make the offer because it seems socially appropriate, but they feel disappointed or even annoyed when someone actually accepts. This creates tension and undermines the generous gesture. Meaning it requires internal honesty about your motivations and genuine willingness to let go. Before offering, you must truly decide that you are okay with either outcome. If accepting the last slice yourself would bring you more joy than seeing someone else enjoy it, then keep it without guilt. If sharing it would genuinely make you happier, then offer it wholeheartedly. This principle applies beyond food to any situation where you share limited resources. Offering someone the better seat, the preferred time slot, or the last available opportunity requires the same authentic generosity. Your offer should come from a place of abundance rather than sacrifice that breeds resentment. The practice builds trust because people can sense when generosity is genuine versus performative. When others know your offers are sincere, they feel more comfortable accepting them. This creates more natural and honest relationships where people can receive gifts without guilt or obligation. Offering the last slice and meaning it transforms routine social interactions into moments of genuine connection and care. Laugh at yourself first. Laugh at yourself first means being the initial person to find humor in your own mistakes, quirks, or awkward moments rather than waiting for others to point them out. It represents the practice of self-awareness and humility that allows you to acknowledge your imperfections with lightness before anyone else has the chance. This principle recognizes that self-deprecating humor creates connection and diffuses potential criticism or embarrassment. Most people feel defensive when they make mistakes or find themselves in awkward situations. They hope others will not notice their errors, stumbles, or embarrassing moments. When someone does point out these flaws, defensiveness often follows. This creates tension and missed opportunities for genuine human connection through shared imperfection. When you laugh at yourself first, you demonstrate emotional maturity and self-acceptance. You show that you do not take yourself so seriously that mistakes become catastrophic. This approach often inspires others to relax and share their own imperfections more openly. Your willingness to be human gives everyone permission to be human too. The key is timing and authenticity. Laughing at yourself works best when it comes from genuine amusement rather than self-attack or desperate attempts to avoid criticism. Healthy self-humor acknowledges flaws without diminishing your overall self-worth. It says, "I made a silly mistake," rather than, "I am fundamentally flawed." This practice works in professional settings too. A leader who can chuckle about their technology difficulties or mispronounced words creates more relaxed team dynamics. Colleagues appreciate working with someone who does not require perfection from themselves or others. Laughing at yourself first transforms potentially embarrassing moments into opportunities for connection and demonstrates confidence in your fundamental worth despite temporary imperfections. Compliment spontaneously. Compliment spontaneously means offering genuine praise in the moment you notice something positive rather than saving it for formal occasions or waiting for the perfect time. It represents the practice of speaking appreciation immediately when it arises naturally, understanding that authentic compliments lose power when delayed or planned. This principle recognizes that spontaneous recognition feels more sincere and creates stronger emotional impact than scheduled praise. Many people notice positive things about others but hold back from expressing these observations. They think they will remember to mention it later, or they worry about seeming awkward or overly enthusiastic. Sometimes they save compliments for performance reviews, birthday cards, or other formal moments. This delay often means the compliment never gets shared at all, or it feels stilted when finally delivered. Spontaneous compliments capture the authentic emotion of the moment when you genuinely notice something worth appreciating. "That was such a thoughtful question you asked in the meeting. Your laugh always makes everyone else smile. I love how you explained that concept so clearly." These immediate reactions feel natural and believable because they emerge from real-time observation. The spontaneity also benefits the giver. When you express appreciation as it occurs to you, you strengthen your own habit of noticing positive things. You become more aware of good qualities in people around you. This creates an upward spiral where increased attention to positive traits leads to more opportunities for genuine praise. The key is keeping compliments specific and authentic. Vague praise like, "You're great," feels less meaningful than specific observations about actions, qualities, or impacts you actually noticed. Spontaneous compliments work because they reflect genuine attention and care expressed in the natural moment of recognition. Widen the lens. Widen the lens means stepping back to see the bigger picture when you find yourself focused too narrowly on immediate problems, conflicts, or situations. It represents the practice of expanding your perspective to include more context, longer time frames, and broader implications before making judgments or decisions. This principle recognizes that most situations look different when viewed from a wider vantage point. People naturally zoom in on immediate concerns, especially during stress or conflict. A difficult conversation becomes all-consuming. A work setback feels catastrophic. A relationship disagreement seems relationship-ending. This narrow focus intensifies emotions and often leads to decisions based on incomplete information or temporary circumstances. Widening the lens involves asking different questions. How will this matter in a year? What context am I missing? What would this look like from the other person's perspective? What other factors might be influencing this situation? These questions help you step outside the immediate emotional intensity to gain clearer understanding. The practice applies to both positive and negative situations. Celebrating a success while widening the lens helps you appreciate the people and circumstances that contributed to your achievement. Facing a setback with a wider lens helps you see temporary challenges within the context of longer-term progress and possibilities. Professional decisions especially benefit from lens widening. A frustrating project delay looks different when viewed against overall career development. A difficult colleague becomes more understandable when you consider their current pressures and past experiences. Widening the lens does not mean minimizing real problems or avoiding necessary action. Instead, it ensures your responses are proportionate and well-informed by considering the fuller picture rather than reacting to isolated moments or narrow perspectives. Confidence embraces imperfection. Confidence embraces imperfection means understanding that true self-assurance comes from accepting your flaws rather than pretending they do not exist. It represents the recognition that genuine confidence includes vulnerability and acknowledges mistakes as part of the human experience. This principle understands that trying to appear perfect actually signals insecurity, while owning your imperfections demonstrates real strength. Many people believe confidence requires projecting flawlessness. They hide mistakes, avoid challenging situations where they might fail, and present carefully curated versions of themselves. This approach creates fragile confidence that crumbles when imperfections inevitably surface. It also prevents real connection because others cannot relate to impossibly perfect personas. True confidence says, "I make mistakes and I am still valuable." It admits when you do not know something rather than pretending expertise. It acknowledges when you handle situations poorly while maintaining belief in your overall capability. This approach creates resilient self-worth because it does not depend on maintaining an impossible standard. Embracing imperfection also makes you more approachable and trustworthy. People feel comfortable around those who acknowledge their humanity. They are more likely to share their own struggles and seek guidance from someone who admits their own challenges. Your willingness to be imperfect gives others permission to be real too. This confidence shows up in how you handle feedback, mistakes, and new challenges. Instead of becoming defensive when criticized, you listen for useful information. When you fail at something, you focus on learning rather than shame. When facing unfamiliar situations, you approach them with curiosity rather than fear of looking incompetent. Confidence that embraces imperfection creates authentic relationships and sustainable self-worth. Give presence, not just presence. Give presence, not just presence means offering your full attention and engaged participation rather than relying solely on material gifts to show care. It represents the understanding that people value your time, focus, and emotional availability more than expensive items or elaborate gestures. This principle recognizes that meaningful relationships are built through consistent attention rather than occasional purchases. Many people substitute gifts for genuine engagement, especially during busy periods or when relationships feel strained. They buy expensive presents to compensate for missed conversations, elaborate surprises to make up for absent attention, or thoughtful items instead of thoughtful presence. While gifts can express care, they cannot replace the fundamental human need for connection and witness. Presence means putting away distractions when someone needs to talk. It involves asking follow-up questions that show you are listening. It includes remembering details from previous conversations and checking in about ongoing concerns. Presence shows up as undivided attention during shared meals, activities, or quiet moments together. This approach requires intentional choices about time and energy. Presence cannot be rushed or multitasked. It demands slowing down enough to notice what others are experiencing and responding with genuine interest. Sometimes presence means sitting quietly with someone who is struggling, offering comfort through your calm attention rather than trying to fix their problems. The impact of presence compounds over time. Children remember parents who listen to their daily stories more than expensive toys. Friends value those who show up during difficult times more than those who send elaborate gifts. Colleagues appreciate managers who provide focused attention during conversations more than those who offer bonuses while remaining distracted. Giving presents creates deeper bonds than any material gift can achieve. Check in twice. Check in twice means following up on people's well-being or progress beyond the initial inquiry, understanding that the first check-in often reveals surface information while the second one uncovers deeper truths. It represents the practice of persistent care that goes beyond polite social convention to genuine concern. This principle recognizes that people rarely share their real struggles during the first casual, "How are you?" exchange. Most social interactions involve superficial check-ins that receive automatic responses. "How are you?" gets answered with "Fine, thanks," regardless of actual circumstances. People have learned to give socially acceptable answers that keep conversations moving smoothly. They save their real concerns for people who demonstrate genuine interest through follow-up questions and continued attention. The second check-in shows you are actually listening to the first response and care enough to dig deeper. You mention things were busy at work. "How are you handling all that pressure? Last week you seemed stressed about your mom's health. Any updates on how she's doing?" These follow-up inquiries signal that you remember and care about their specific situation. Timing matters for effective second check-ins. Sometimes you circle back within the same conversation after someone has had time to think. Other times you follow up days or weeks later when circumstances might have changed. The key is showing that their initial response registered with you and continues to matter. This approach works in professional settings too. Following up on team members' workload concerns, personal challenges, or career goals demonstrates leadership that goes beyond surface-level management. People feel valued when someone remembers their specific situation and cares enough to ask again. Checking in twice transforms casual acquaintances into trusted relationships because it proves your interest in their well-being is genuine and sustained. Assume error, never malice. Assume error, never malice means attributing mistakes, oversights, and disappointing behaviors to human fallibility rather than intentional harm or bad intentions. It represents the practice of giving people the benefit of the doubt by considering incompetence, miscommunication, or circumstances before assuming deliberate wrongdoing. This principle recognizes that most interpersonal conflicts stem from misunderstandings rather than malicious intent. When someone disappoints, hurts, or frustrates us, our minds often jump to negative explanations about their character or motivations. They forgot our meeting because they do not respect us. They made that comment to hurt our feelings. They did not respond to our message because they are ignoring us. These assumptions create unnecessary conflict and damage relationships. Assuming error means considering alternative explanations first. Maybe they forgot the meeting because they are overwhelmed with personal stress. Perhaps their comment came from their own insecurity rather than desire to hurt you. They might not have seen your message or did not know how to respond appropriately. These explanations often prove more accurate than malicious intent. This approach does not mean being naive about genuinely harmful behavior. Some people do act with bad intentions, and recognizing patterns of deliberate harm is important for self-protection. However, most daily disappointments and conflicts involve good people making mistakes, operating under stress, or lacking information rather than plotting to cause damage. Starting with error assumptions creates space for productive conversations. Instead of accusatory confrontations, you can ask clarifying questions. "I noticed you seemed frustrated during the meeting. Was there something I missed?" This approach often reveals misunderstandings that can be resolved rather than character flaws that cannot be changed. Assuming error preserves relationships while still addressing problems effectively. Try to play positive-sum games only. Try to play positive-sum games only means seeking situations and relationships where everyone can benefit simultaneously rather than engaging in competitions where one person's gain requires another's loss. It represents the mindset of abundance that looks for opportunities to create mutual value instead of fighting over limited resources. This principle recognizes that the most sustainable and fulfilling interactions happen when all parties can succeed together. Many life situations are framed as zero-sum games where winning means someone else must lose. Workplace promotions, social status, romantic attention, or family resources often seem like fixed pies that must be divided. This scarcity thinking creates unnecessary competition and conflict between people who could potentially support each other's success. Positive-sum thinking reframes these situations to find mutual benefit. Instead of competing for one promotion, you help create opportunities for multiple people to advance. Rather than hoarding knowledge that gives you advantage, you share information that helps everyone perform better. You seek romantic relationships where both people grow rather than one person sacrificing for the other's happiness. This approach requires creativity and long-term thinking. Short-term zero-sum victories often create long-term negative consequences. Building reputation by diminishing others eventually backfires. Taking credit for team success damages future collaboration. Winning arguments at the expense of relationships proves costly over time. Positive-sum games build networks of mutual support that compound benefits over years. People remember who helped everyone succeed rather than who fought for personal advantage. They become allies and advocates for those who contributed to shared victories. Professional opportunities increase when you are known for creating value for others. Playing positive-sum games transforms competitive environments into collaborative ones where everyone's success contributes to your own advancement. Voice notes express more. Voice notes express more means using audio messages to communicate nuance, emotion, and personality that text cannot convey effectively. It represents the understanding that human voices carry information beyond words through tone, pace, and inflection that creates deeper connection and clearer communication. This principle recognizes that voice notes bridge the gap between impersonal text and time-intensive phone calls. Text messages often create misunderstandings because they lack emotional context. A simple "fine" can sound angry, disappointed, or genuinely okay depending on tone. Sarcasm gets lost. Enthusiasm feels flat. Important conversations become confusing when people cannot hear the speaker's actual emotional state or emphasis on key points. Voice notes restore the human element to digital communication. Your tone reveals whether you are joking or serious. Your pace shows excitement or concern. Your voice carries warmth that text cannot express. People hear your personality and mood, making the interaction feel more personal and connected. This format works especially well for complex explanations, emotional conversations, or when you want to show care. Instead of typing long paragraphs that might be misinterpreted, you can speak naturally and let your voice carry the intended meaning. The recipient hears your genuine concern, excitement, or affection directly. Voice notes also save time for both sender and receiver. Speaking often flows faster than typing, especially for longer messages. Listeners can multitask while hearing your message, making it convenient for busy schedules. The format feels more intimate than text but less demanding than phone calls. Using voice notes shows you care enough to share your actual voice and personality, creating stronger relationships through more authentic communication that reveals who you really are beyond written words. Coach in private, praise in public. Coach in private, praise in public means providing corrective feedback and guidance during one-on-one conversations while sharing recognition and appreciation in front of others. It represents the leadership principle that protects people's dignity during learning moments while amplifying their successes for everyone to see. This principle recognizes that public criticism damages relationships and motivation, while public praise builds confidence and encourages continued excellence. Many people do the opposite without thinking. They correct mistakes in group settings, offer feedback during team meetings, or point out problems when others are listening. This approach embarrasses the person receiving feedback and creates defensive responses that prevent real learning. It also makes everyone else uncomfortable and less likely to take risks or share ideas. Private coaching creates psychological safety for honest conversations about improvement. People can ask questions, admit confusion, and explore better approaches without worrying about their reputation or others' opinions. They feel supported rather than attacked, making them more receptive to guidance and more likely to implement suggested changes. Public praise amplifies positive impact by showing others what excellence looks like while giving recognition to deserving individuals. When you highlight someone's good work in front of their peers, you motivate them to continue performing well while providing examples for others to follow. This approach builds team culture that values and rewards quality work. The practice requires discipline because public correction often feels like the fastest way to address problems. However, taking time for private conversations shows respect for the individual while achieving better long-term results. People trust leaders who protect their dignity while helping them grow and celebrate their contributions openly. Don't tease the shrinking. Don't tease the shrinking means avoiding jokes or playful comments directed at people who are already withdrawing, struggling, or showing signs of vulnerability. It represents the wisdom to recognize when someone needs protection rather than playful banter, understanding that humor can wound deeply when directed at those who are already hurting. This principle acknowledges that teasing requires emotional resilience that some people lack in certain moments. Most teasing happens with good intentions. Friends joke with each other, families share playful banter, and colleagues use humor to build relationships. This works well when everyone feels emotionally stable and secure. However, when someone is going through difficult times, feeling insecure, or showing signs of withdrawal, the same teasing that usually creates connection can push them further away. Shrinking looks different in different people. Someone might become quieter in group conversations, avoid social gatherings they usually enjoy, or seem more sensitive to comments that normally would not bother them. They might laugh less, participate less, or appear more fragile than usual. These signs indicate that their emotional reserves are low and they need gentleness rather than challenge. Recognizing shrinking requires attention and empathy. You notice when someone's usual confident demeanor seems forced. You see when their typical humor disappears. You observe when they seem to be protecting themselves rather than engaging openly. These moments call for extra kindness rather than typical social dynamics. This does not mean treating struggling people as fragile forever. Most people recover their resilience and can handle normal teasing again. The skill lies in reading the room and adjusting your approach based on someone's current emotional capacity rather than their usual personality. If it's not yours, don't take it. If it is private, don't share it. If it's not yours, don't take it. If it is private, don't share it means respecting both physical and emotional boundaries by avoiding taking what belongs to others and keeping confidential information secure. It represents the fundamental principle of respecting ownership and privacy that forms the foundation of trust in relationships. This principle recognizes that violating these boundaries, even in small ways, damages the social fabric that holds communities together. The first part seems obvious with physical items, but extends beyond material possessions. It includes not taking credit for others' ideas, not using someone's time without permission, and not claiming achievements that belong to colleagues or friends. Taking what is not yours creates resentment and breaks down trust in both personal and professional relationships. The privacy aspect covers information, secrets, stories, and personal details that people share in confidence. When someone tells you about their relationship struggles, family problems, or personal fears, they trust you to keep that information safe. Sharing private details, even with good intentions or to people who need to know, violates that trust and often causes lasting damage. These boundaries apply in digital spaces too. Sharing screenshots of private conversations, posting photos without permission, or forwarding personal messages breaks the same trust as sharing verbal confidences. Social media amplifies the potential damage of boundary violations because information spreads quickly and permanently. Respecting these boundaries requires ongoing discipline because opportunities to cross them appear constantly. Someone leaves their phone unlocked, shares gossip, or asks you to bend rules. Maintaining integrity in these moments builds reputation as someone who can be trusted with both possessions and secrets. Following this principle creates relationships based on mutual respect and safety where people feel comfortable being authentic and vulnerable. Apologize without a paragraph. Apologize without a paragraph means offering sincere, concise apologies that focus on taking responsibility rather than providing lengthy explanations or justifications for your actions. It represents the understanding that effective apologies are brief, direct, and centered on acknowledging harm rather than defending your intentions. This principle recognizes that over-explaining during apologies often dilutes their impact and can sound like excuse-making rather than genuine remorse. Many people believe that longer apologies demonstrate more sincerity or care. They provide detailed explanations of their circumstances, intentions, and reasoning behind their mistakes. They describe their stress levels, competing priorities, or misunderstandings that led to problems. While these explanations might be accurate, they often shift focus away from the person who was hurt toward the person who caused harm. Brief apologies pack more power because they center the injured party's experience. I apologize for missing your presentation. That was important to you and I let you down. I'm sorry I interrupted you repeatedly during the meeting. That was disrespectful. I apologize for my harsh tone yesterday. You did not deserve that. These statements acknowledge specific harm without diluting responsibility through explanation. The key elements include acknowledging what you did wrong, recognizing the impact on the other person, and taking clear responsibility without conditions or excuses. Effective apologies avoid phrases like, "I'm sorry if you felt," or "I'm sorry but I was stressed because." These additions undermine the apology by questioning the other person's reaction or providing justifications. Short apologies also leave space for the other person to respond, ask questions, or express their feelings without having to process your lengthy defense first. This creates opportunity for genuine dialogue and repair. Celebrate micro wins. Celebrate micro wins means acknowledging and appreciating small progress and minor achievements rather than waiting for major milestones to recognize success. It represents the understanding that meaningful progress happens through accumulated small victories that deserve recognition and celebration. This principle recognizes that waiting for big wins often means missing the daily progress that actually creates lasting change. Most people reserve celebration for major achievements like promotions, graduations, or completed projects. They overlook the small daily victories that make those big wins possible. Finishing a difficult workout, having a productive conversation, completing a challenging task, or making a healthy choice all represent progress worth acknowledging. Micro-win celebration creates positive momentum that sustains long-term efforts. When you acknowledge small progress, you reinforce behaviors that lead to bigger achievements. Your brain begins associating effort with reward, making it easier to continue pushing forward during difficult periods. This positive reinforcement cycle builds resilience and motivation. The practice can be as simple as pausing to appreciate moments of growth. I handled that stressful meeting well. I chose the healthier option at lunch. I asked for help when I needed it. These internal acknowledgments create satisfaction that fuels continued effort. Celebrating micro wins also helps others stay motivated. Recognizing a colleague's improved presentation skills, a friend's progress toward fitness goals, or a child's effort to be kind shows that you notice their growth. This attention encourages continued development by showing that progress is seen and valued. This approach transforms the journey toward goals into a series of rewarding experiences rather than a long struggle toward distant achievements that may never feel satisfying enough. Let them finish sentence. Let them finish sentence means allowing people to complete their thoughts without interrupting, even when you think you know what they will say or have something important to add. It represents the practice of patient listening that honors the speaker's right to express their complete idea before responding. This principle recognizes that interrupting, even with good intentions, disrupts thought processes and signals that your words matter more than theirs. Most interruptions happen because listeners become excited about their own responses or believe they understand the speaker's point before it is fully expressed. They jump in with agreements, corrections, or related stories while the other person is still forming their thoughts. This creates frustration and prevents complete communication from occurring. Finishing sentences requires restraint and genuine curiosity about what someone is trying to say. Often, the most important part of their message comes at the end of their thought. They might be building toward a conclusion, sharing a vulnerable insight, or expressing a nuanced opinion that contradicts your initial assumptions about their direction. This practice becomes especially important during emotional conversations when people struggle to find the right words. Interrupting someone who is working through difficult feelings can shut down their willingness to continue sharing. They need space to process and express their thoughts without competing for speaking time. Professional settings also benefit from this discipline. Team members feel more valued when their ideas receive complete expression before discussion begins. Meetings become more productive when people can finish presenting their thoughts before others respond with questions or feedback. Letting people finish their sentences shows respect for their thinking process and often reveals information you would have missed through premature interruption. Let people arrive at their own speed. Let people arrive at their own speed means allowing others to process information, make decisions, and reach conclusions according to their natural pace rather than rushing them toward your timeline or preferred outcomes. It represents the understanding that people have different processing styles and need varying amounts of time to fully understand, accept, or commit to ideas. This principle recognizes that forcing speed often creates resistance and poor decisions. Many people become impatient when others do not immediately grasp concepts, agree with proposals, or make decisions quickly. They repeat explanations, apply pressure, or express frustration when someone needs more time to think. This urgency often backfires by creating stress that actually slows down the other person's ability to process effectively. Different people need different amounts of time for various reasons. Some think out loud and reach conclusions through conversation. Others need quiet reflection before forming opinions. Some require multiple exposures to new ideas before feeling comfortable. Others need to discuss options with trusted advisors before committing to important decisions. Respecting natural pace means providing information without demanding immediate responses. It involves asking, "What questions do you have?" rather than, "Do you understand?" It means offering time for consideration rather than pushing for quick agreement. This approach often leads to better outcomes because people make more thoughtful decisions when they feel unpressured. This practice applies to learning situations, relationship conversations, and professional discussions. Students learn better when allowed to absorb material at their own rate. Friends make better choices when given space to think through problems. Colleagues provide more thoughtful input when not rushed through decision-making processes. Letting people arrive at their own speed builds trust and leads to more genuine engagement and better long-term results. Say goodbye like it might be remembered. Say goodbye like it might be remembered means treating each farewell as potentially significant, offering genuine warmth and care rather than rushed or distracted partings. It represents the understanding that final interactions often become lasting memories, especially when they turn out to be more final than expected. This principle recognizes that thoughtful goodbyes strengthen relationships and provide closure that both people carry forward. Most goodbyes happen automatically without much consideration. We wave quickly, mumble, "See you later," or end conversations abruptly while thinking about the next task. These casual partings work fine for routine separations, but they miss opportunities to reinforce connection and care. More importantly, they feel inadequate when goodbyes become unexpectedly permanent. Memorable goodbyes involve presence and intention. You make eye contact, offer genuine appreciation, and express care about the person's well-being. "It was really good to see you. Take care of yourself. I'm glad we had this time together. Let me know how things go with your project. Thank you for this conversation. I hope your week goes well." These moments create positive final impressions. This practice becomes especially meaningful with people you see infrequently or those going through difficult times. Your thoughtful goodbye might be the encouragement they remember during challenging moments. It could be the interaction that helps them feel valued and cared for when they need it most. The approach does not require dramatic gestures or lengthy speeches. Simple sincerity and brief attention to the moment transform routine partings into connections that people appreciate and remember. This habit builds stronger relationships because others feel genuinely seen and valued during your time together. Treat your future self as a friend you care about. Treat your future self as a friend you care about means making decisions today that will benefit the person you will become, considering their well-being and happiness as seriously as you would for someone you love. It represents the practice of extending compassion and consideration across time to yourself, understanding that your future self deserves the same kindness you would show to a close friend. This principle recognizes that many present moment choices create consequences that your future self must live with. Most people treat their future self as a stranger or even an adversary. They make decisions based purely on immediate desires without considering tomorrow's consequences. They stay up too late knowing they will be tired. They procrastinate on important tasks that will create stress later. They spend money impulsively without thinking about future financial pressure. They avoid difficult conversations that will become harder over time. Treating your future self as a friend changes your decision-making process. You consider how your choices will affect that person's day, mood, health, and opportunities. You prepare meals ahead of time so your future self has healthy options during busy periods. You save money so they have financial security. You exercise regularly so they enjoy better health and energy. This approach extends to emotional preparation too. You have difficult conversations now so your future self does not carry unresolved tension. You learn new skills so they have more opportunities. You build relationships so they have support systems during challenging times. The practice requires imagination and empathy directed toward yourself. You visualize how your future self will feel about decisions you make today. This perspective often reveals that small present moment sacrifices create significant future benefits that make the trade-off worthwhile. Text when you are late. Text when you are late means sending a quick message to inform people when you will not arrive at the expected time, showing respect for their schedule and reducing their uncertainty about your status. It represents the practice of considerate communication that acknowledges how your delays affect others who are waiting or planning around your arrival. This principle recognizes that a simple message can prevent frustration and demonstrate that you value other people's time. Being late occasionally happens to everyone due to unexpected traffic, last-minute emergencies, or poor time estimation. The problem is not the lateness itself but the lack of communication that leaves others wondering about your whereabouts. People waiting for you might worry about your safety, feel disrespected, or waste time that could be used productively if they knew about the delay. A quick text message solves multiple problems simultaneously. Running 15 minutes late due to traffic gives the waiting person useful information for their planning. They can use those extra minutes for other tasks, adjust their own schedule, or simply relax knowing you are safe and coming. This small courtesy prevents anxiety and frustration on both sides. The message should include your estimated new arrival time rather than just announcing the delay. Sorry, running late is less helpful than stuck in traffic, will be there by 3:30 instead of 3:15. Specific timing helps others make informed decisions about how to use the waiting period. This practice works for all types of appointments, from casual friend meetups to important business meetings. Professional relationships especially benefit from prompt delay notifications because they show reliability and consideration for colleagues' schedules. Texting when late transforms a potentially negative experience into a demonstration of thoughtfulness and respect. Too many yes becomes self-betrayal. Too many yes becomes self-betrayal means recognizing that constantly agreeing to requests and opportunities without considering your own needs, values, and capacity eventually violates your authentic self and core priorities. It represents the understanding that saying yes to everything means saying no to what matters most to you. This principle acknowledges that chronic people-pleasing and inability to set boundaries leads to resentment, exhaustion, and loss of personal identity. Many people pride themselves on being helpful, accommodating, and always available. They say yes to extra work projects, social invitations, volunteer opportunities, and family requests without pausing to consider the cumulative impact. Each individual yes might seem reasonable, but together they create overwhelming commitments that leave no space for personal needs, rest, or pursuing meaningful goals. Self-betrayal happens gradually through small compromises. You agree to work late again instead of going to the gym. You accept another social obligation when you need quiet time. You volunteer for additional responsibilities when you are already stretched thin. Each yes moves you further from your authentic priorities and values. The practice of thoughtful boundaries requires asking different questions before responding to requests. Does this align with my current priorities? Do I have genuine capacity for this commitment? What will I need to sacrifice to make this work? Am I saying yes from excitement or from guilt and pressure? Learning to say no preserves your ability to say meaningful yes to opportunities that truly matter. It protects your energy for relationships, projects, and experiences that align with your values. This creates a more authentic life where your choices reflect your genuine priorities rather than other people's expectations. Too many yes create a life that belongs to everyone except yourself. Laugh without harm. Laugh without harm means choosing humor that brings joy and connection without targeting people's insecurities, differences, or vulnerable moments. It represents the practice of finding comedy that uplifts rather than diminishes, understanding that the best laughter comes from shared absurdity rather than someone's pain. This principle recognizes that humor can either build bridges between people or create walls that exclude and hurt others. Much humor relies on making someone the target of jokes. People laugh at others' mistakes, physical differences, social awkwardness, or personal struggles. While this might generate immediate laughs, it often creates lasting hurt and damages relationships. The temporary entertainment comes at the cost of someone's dignity and sense of belonging. Harmless humor finds comedy in situations, observations, and shared human experiences rather than individual failings. It laughs with people rather than at them. Self-deprecating jokes, absurd observations about everyday life, wordplay, and gentle situational comedy create connection without casualties. This type of humor invites everyone to participate rather than excluding someone as the target. The key is considering impact alongside intent. You might not mean to hurt someone with your joke, but if it highlights their insecurities or differences in ways that make them uncomfortable, the humor creates harm regardless of your intentions. Paying attention to people's reactions helps you distinguish between laughter that includes and laughter that isolates. Laughing without harm requires creativity because it eliminates easy targets. However, this constraint often leads to more clever and original humor that everyone can enjoy together. It builds rather than breaks down social connections because nobody has to worry about becoming the next target. This approach creates inclusive environments where people feel safe to be themselves without fear of becoming entertainment for others. Keep your bag off the seat, someone else could use. Keep your bag off the seat, someone else could use means being aware of shared spaces and avoiding taking up extra room that others might need, especially in crowded public areas. It represents the practice of considerate space sharing that prioritizes collective comfort over personal convenience. This principle recognizes that small acts of spatial awareness demonstrate respect for the community and help create environments where everyone feels welcome. Many people unconsciously claim more space than they need by placing belongings on adjacent seats, spreading out across multiple chairs, or positioning themselves in ways that discourage others from sitting nearby. This happens on buses, trains, waiting areas, cafes, and other shared spaces where seating is limited. While often unintentional, this behavior can exclude others who need places to sit. Keeping bags off seats requires awareness of your surroundings and consideration for others' needs. You notice when spaces become crowded and proactively make room for newcomers. You move belongings to your lap or floor rather than occupying extra seats. You shift your position to create welcoming space rather than defensive barriers. This practice extends beyond literal seats to other shared resources. It includes not monopolizing bathroom stalls, cafe tables, or workout equipment longer than necessary. It means being mindful of how much space your belongings take up in overhead compartments, lockers, or shared refrigerators. The gesture often goes unnoticed by those who benefit, but it creates a culture of mutual consideration. When people see others making space, they are more likely to do the same. These small courtesies accumulate to create more pleasant shared environments for everyone. Being spatially considerate shows that you see yourself as part of a community rather than the center of it. Let absence teach as much as presence. Let absence teach as much as presence means recognizing that what is missing, avoided, or left unsaid often provides as much valuable information as what is directly observable or explicitly communicated. It represents the wisdom of paying attention to gaps, silences, and avoided topics to gain deeper understanding of situations and relationships. This principle acknowledges that people and circumstances reveal themselves through what they omit as much as what they include. Most people focus primarily on what is present and obvious. They listen to words that are spoken, observe actions that are taken, and analyze information that is provided directly. However, equally important insights often lie in what is absent from conversations, missing from explanations, or consistently avoided in discussions. Professional settings offer many examples of instructive absence. A team member who never volunteers for certain types of projects might be revealing skill gaps or discomfort areas. A manager who avoids giving specific feedback might be struggling with difficult conversations. A colleague who stops participating in social activities could be experiencing personal challenges or workplace dissatisfaction. Personal relationships also communicate through absence. Friends who stop initiating contact might be feeling unvalued in the relationship. Family members who avoid certain topics could be protecting sensitive areas or struggling with unresolved issues. Partners who no longer share daily details might be creating emotional distance. Learning from absence requires curiosity rather than assumptions. Instead of jumping to conclusions about why something is missing, you can gently explore these gaps through careful questions and patient observation. Sometimes absence reveals preferences, boundaries, or needs that direct communication has not expressed. This awareness helps you respond more thoughtfully to the complete picture of what others are communicating through both their presence and their absence. Hallways have traffic rules too. Hallways have traffic rules too means being mindful of how you move through shared spaces, following unwritten social conventions that help everyone navigate efficiently and comfortably. It represents the understanding that considerate movement in corridors, walkways, and passageways requires the same awareness as driving on roads. This principle recognizes that thoughtful navigation of shared spaces demonstrates respect for others and helps create smooth flow for everyone. Most people move through hallways, sidewalks, and corridors without considering how their choices affect others around them. They stop suddenly to check phones, walk slowly in groups that block passage, or weave unpredictably without signaling their intentions. These behaviors create the same frustrations as poor driving habits, causing bottlenecks and unnecessary stress for everyone trying to move through the space. Hallway traffic rules include staying to the right in most cultures, maintaining reasonable walking speed, and moving aside when stopping to talk or check messages. When walking in groups, considerate people arrange themselves to leave space for others to pass. They signal their intentions by maintaining predictable paths and avoiding sudden direction changes without warning. The practice extends to elevators, staircases, and doorways. You let people exit before entering, hold doors for those following closely, and position yourself to maximize space for others. These small courtesies prevent congestion and create pleasant experiences in shared spaces. Being aware of hallway traffic flow shows social intelligence and consideration for the community. It demonstrates that you see yourself as part of a larger system where individual choices affect collective comfort and efficiency. This mindfulness transforms routine movement into opportunities for mutual respect and smooth social functioning. Mirror feelings first. Mirror feelings first means reflecting back someone's emotional experience before offering solutions, advice, or your own perspective, understanding that people need to feel heard and validated before they can receive help effectively. It represents the practice of emotional acknowledgement that creates connection and trust through empathetic listening. This principle recognizes that most people sharing difficulties need their feelings understood more than their problems solved immediately. When someone expresses frustration, sadness, or excitement, the natural response often involves jumping straight to problem-solving mode or sharing your own related experiences. While well-intentioned, this approach can leave people feeling unheard because their emotional experience gets bypassed in favor of logical solutions or comparative stories. Mirroring feelings involves acknowledging and reflecting the emotions you observe before moving to other responses. That sounds incredibly frustrating. I can hear how excited you are about this opportunity. What a disappointing situation to deal with. These simple acknowledgments validate their emotional experience and show that you are truly listening to their inner state. The practice requires setting aside your own agenda temporarily to focus completely on understanding their perspective. You listen for both the facts they share and the feelings behind those facts. Sometimes the emotion is obvious, but often it requires careful attention to tone, word choice, and body language to accurately perceive what they are experiencing. Once feelings are mirrored and the person feels genuinely understood, they become much more receptive to suggestions, different perspectives, or problem-solving conversations. The emotional validation creates psychological safety that opens them to other types of support. Mirroring feelings first builds deeper relationships because people feel truly seen and understood in their authentic emotional experiences. Don't meet softness with stiffness. Don't meet softness with stiffness means responding to vulnerability, gentleness, and openness with equal warmth rather than defensiveness or emotional rigidity. It represents the understanding that when someone offers their tender emotions or authentic self, they deserve a response that matches their courage with compassion. This principle recognizes that meeting softness with stiffness breaks trust and discourages future vulnerability in relationships. When people share vulnerable feelings, admit mistakes, or express genuine emotion, they take emotional risks that require courage. They might apologize sincerely, express love openly, share fears honestly, or admit they need help. These moments of softness create opportunities for deeper connection, but only if they are met with appropriate gentleness in return. Stiffness in response to softness can take many forms. Becoming defensive when someone shares hurt feelings. Responding with logic when someone expresses emotional needs. Offering rigid advice when someone needs comfort. Making jokes when someone is being serious. These responses, while often unconscious, signal that their vulnerability is unwelcome or unsafe. Matching softness requires emotional availability and willingness to be present with someone's tender moments. When someone apologizes genuinely, you receive it gracefully rather than continuing to argue. When they express love, you respond with warmth rather than deflection. When they share fears, you offer comfort rather than dismissal. This practice builds psychological safety in relationships because people learn they can bring their authentic selves without facing emotional walls. They feel encouraged to continue sharing honestly because their vulnerability is met with care and understanding. Don't meeting softness with stiffness creates relationships where both people can be real, flawed, and human together without fear of emotional rejection. Decline like you'd want to be declined. Decline like you'd want to be declined means saying no to invitations and requests with the same kindness, respect, and consideration you would hope to receive when others cannot fulfill your needs. It represents the golden rule applied to rejection, understanding that how you refuse requests affects relationships as much as how you grant them. This principle recognizes that thoughtful declining preserves dignity and maintains connections even when you cannot provide what someone wants. Most people struggle with saying no gracefully. They either avoid giving clear answers, hoping requests will disappear, or deliver blunt rejections that feel harsh and dismissive. Some over-explain their reasons in ways that sound defensive, while others become apologetic to the point of confusion about their actual decision. Declining as you would want to be declined means considering the other person's feelings while maintaining clear boundaries. You acknowledge their request with respect, give a direct but kind answer, and express appreciation for being considered. This approach sounds genuine rather than scripted because it comes from empathy for their position. Effective declining includes phrases like, "I'm honored you thought of me, but I won't be able to participate," or, "Thank you for the invitation. I have other commitments that evening." The key is being clear about your decision while showing respect for their request and maintaining warmth in the relationship. This approach avoids leaving false hope through vague responses or creating hurt feelings through unnecessarily harsh rejections. People remember how you treat them when you cannot help, not just when you can assist them. Declining thoughtfully demonstrates that you value the relationship even when you cannot fulfill specific requests, preserving connections for future interactions. Appreciate, ever unseen. Appreciate, ever unseen means recognizing and valuing contributions, efforts, and qualities that others might overlook or take for granted, understanding that acknowledgement of hidden work and quiet strengths builds profound connection. It represents the practice of noticing what usually goes unnoticed and expressing gratitude for the subtle ways people make life better. This principle recognizes that most meaningful contributions happen behind the scenes without recognition or praise. Every environment contains countless unseen efforts that make everything else possible. The colleague who quietly fixes problems before they become crises. The friend who remembers important details about your life and follows up thoughtfully. The family member who handles tedious tasks without being asked. The neighbor who maintains their property in ways that benefit everyone. These contributions often become invisible through their consistency. Appreciating the unseen requires deliberate attention to what enables smooth functioning in your daily life. You notice the person who always arrives early to set up meeting rooms. You recognize the team member who stays late to finish work that helps everyone else succeed. You acknowledge the friend who consistently offers emotional support without seeking attention for their kindness. Expressing appreciation for unseen contributions creates powerful impact because these efforts rarely receive recognition. When you thank someone for their behind-the-scenes work, you validate their value in ways they may never have experienced. This acknowledgement often means more than praise for obvious achievements because it shows genuine attention to their character and choices. The practice also develops your own awareness of how interconnected your success is with others' unseen support. This recognition cultivates humility and gratitude that enriches your relationships and perspective on community. Appreciating the ever unseen transforms overlooked contributions into recognized gifts. Build ramps, not barriers. Build ramps, not barriers means creating pathways that help others succeed rather than obstacles that make their progress more difficult, understanding that inclusive approaches benefit everyone in the community. It represents the mindset of looking for ways to make opportunities, spaces, and experiences more accessible rather than maintaining systems that exclude or disadvantage certain people. This principle recognizes that what helps those who struggle most often improves conditions for everyone. Many environments contain unnecessary barriers that prevent people from participating fully. These might be physical obstacles like stairs without alternatives, social barriers like exclusive communication styles, or systemic barriers like processes that work only for people with specific backgrounds or resources. Often these barriers persist because they do not affect the people with power to change them. Building ramps means actively looking for ways to include rather than exclude. You explain concepts in multiple ways to accommodate different learning styles. You schedule meetings at times that work for people with various constraints. You create processes that consider different backgrounds and experiences. You design spaces and systems that work for people with different abilities and circumstances. The ramp-building mindset asks different questions when planning activities or making decisions. Who might this exclude? How could we make this more accessible? What barriers might prevent someone from participating? What simple changes would open this opportunity to more people? This approach often requires initial extra effort but creates long-term benefits for entire communities. When you design inclusively from the beginning, everyone benefits from clearer communication, more flexible systems, and more welcoming environments. Building ramps instead of barriers demonstrates leadership that prioritizes collective success over individual convenience and creates communities where more people can thrive. Let people grieve, without tidying it. Let people grieve, without tidying it means allowing others to experience their loss, sadness, and pain in their own messy, non-linear way rather than trying to organize, fix, or hurry their emotional process. It represents the understanding that grief has its own timeline and expression that cannot be managed or controlled by well-meaning outsiders. This principle recognizes that attempts to clean up or improve someone's grieving process often interfere with the natural healing that needs to occur. When people experience loss, disappointment, or heartbreak, those around them often feel uncomfortable with the raw emotions and extended timeline of grief. They offer advice about moving forward, suggest activities to distract from pain, or imply that enough time has passed for recovery. These responses come from caring but reflect discomfort with messy emotional processes rather than genuine support. Grief refuses to be tidy. It arrives in waves at unexpected moments. It cycles through different emotions without logical progression. It takes longer than others think it should and affects people in ways that do not make sense to observers. Trying to organize or accelerate this process interferes with the natural healing that happens through experiencing rather than avoiding difficult emotions. Letting people grieve means sitting with them in their pain without trying to fix it. You offer presence rather than solutions, listening rather than advice, and patience rather than timelines. You allow them to express anger, sadness, confusion, or numbness without judgment about appropriate responses or proper duration. This support creates space for authentic healing because grieving people do not have to manage others' discomfort with their process. They can focus on their own experience rather than performing recovery for worried friends and family. Unseen choices reveal you. Unseen choices reveal you means understanding that your character is most authentically demonstrated through decisions you make when no one is watching or when there are no external rewards or consequences. It represents the recognition that private moments of choice show your true values more clearly than public actions that might be influenced by social expectations or personal gain. This principle acknowledges that integrity lives in the space between who you appear to be and who you actually are. Public behavior often reflects what people think they should do rather than what they genuinely value. Social pressure, professional expectations, and desire for approval influence visible choices in ways that can mask authentic character. Someone might be generous in public while being selfish in private, or appear confident in groups while treating family members poorly at home. Unseen choices include how you treat service workers when friends are not around, whether you return extra change when cashiers make mistakes, how you respond to others' success when feeling envious, or what you do with information that could benefit you but harm someone else. These moments reveal your actual priorities because external motivations are absent. The principle also applies to smaller daily decisions that accumulate to show character over time. Do you clean up messes you did not create? Do you give credit where it is due even when no one will know? Do you keep promises to yourself when breaking them would be easy and unnoticed? Recognizing that unseen choices reveal you creates accountability to your authentic values rather than just your public image. It encourages alignment between private decisions and stated principles, building genuine integrity that does not depend on audience or reward. This awareness helps you make choices that reflect who you truly want to be. Use emoji to soften, not to dodge clarity. Use emoji to soften, not to dodge clarity means employing emojis to add warmth and friendliness to direct communication rather than using them to avoid being clear about your actual message or feelings. It represents the understanding that emojis should enhance clear communication, not replace it or mask difficult conversations behind cute symbols. This principle recognizes that while emojis can make messages feel more human and less harsh, they should not become tools for avoiding necessary directness. Many people use emojis as emotional shields when delivering difficult messages or giving honest feedback. They add smiley faces to criticism, use laughing emojis after complaints, or pepper serious conversations with cute symbols hoping to soften the blow. While this intention is understandable, it often creates confusion about the actual message and can make serious communication feel trivial or insincere. Effective emoji use adds emotional context to clear, direct communication. I need to talk with you about the project deadline. Smiling face with smiling eyes signals that the conversation will be friendly despite being serious. Your presentation was really impressive today. Clapping hands amplifies genuine praise with visual enthusiasm. These uses maintain clarity while adding warmth that text alone might lack. The key is ensuring your written message stands alone as clear communication even without the emojis. If removing the emoji changes the meaning or makes your message seem too harsh to send, you probably need to revise the words rather than rely on symbols to fix unclear or unkind communication. Good emoji use makes digital communication feel more human and connected while preserving the directness necessary for understanding. It bridges the gap between text and face-to-face conversation without sacrificing important clarity. Own the typo, then fix it publicly. Own the typo, then fix it publicly means acknowledging your written mistakes openly rather than quietly editing them or pretending they never happened, understanding that transparent correction builds more trust than perfect appearance. It represents the practice of taking responsibility for errors while demonstrating your commitment to accuracy and honesty. This principle recognizes that how you handle mistakes often matters more than avoiding them entirely. Most people feel embarrassed when they notice typos, grammatical errors, or factual mistakes in their written communication. The natural instinct is to quickly edit the error and hope no one noticed, or to ignore it completely rather than drawing attention to the mistake. This approach misses opportunities to demonstrate accountability and transparency. Public correction looks like adding a note that says, "Edit, fixed typo" in the third paragraph, or "Correction. The meeting is at 3 p.m., not 2 p.m. as originally stated." These acknowledgments show that you care about accuracy and take responsibility for your communication. They also help readers understand what changed if they saw the original version. This practice builds credibility because people trust those who admit and correct their mistakes more than those who try to appear infallible. It shows intellectual honesty and attention to detail that strengthens your reputation over time. People also appreciate knowing when information has been updated rather than wondering if they misremembered what they read earlier. The principle applies beyond typos to any published mistakes in emails, social media posts, reports, or public communications. Quick, transparent corrections demonstrate professionalism and respect for your audience's need for accurate information. Owning and fixing mistakes publicly transforms errors from credibility problems into trust-building opportunities. Hear the pain before you heal it. Hear the pain before you heal it means fully listening to and understanding someone's hurt or struggle before offering solutions, advice, or attempts to make them feel better. It represents the wisdom that effective help requires deep comprehension of what someone is actually experiencing rather than rushing to fix what you think the problem might be. This principle recognizes that premature healing attempts often miss the mark and can even cause additional harm by making people feel unheard. When someone shares their pain, the natural impulse is to immediately offer comfort, solutions, or perspective that might help them feel better. You want to ease their suffering quickly by suggesting what worked for you, pointing out silver linings, or providing reassurance that everything will be okay. While these responses come from genuine care, they often interrupt the essential process of truly understanding what the person is going through. Hearing pain requires patient listening without the pressure to respond immediately with fixes. You ask questions that help you understand their experience more deeply. What has been the hardest part of this situation? How is this affecting your daily life? What would help you feel most supported right now? These inquiries show that you prioritize understanding over quick solutions. Sometimes hearing pain reveals that the person does not want or need healing attempts at all. They might simply need witness to their experience, validation of their feelings, or companionship in their struggle. Other times, truly understanding their pain helps you offer more relevant and effective support than generic comfort would provide. This approach builds trust because people feel genuinely seen and understood before anyone tries to change their experience. Ask name twice to pronounce correctly. Ask name twice to pronounce correctly means taking the time and effort to learn someone's name properly rather than approximating it or avoiding using it altogether when you are unsure of the pronunciation. It represents the understanding that a person's name is fundamental to their identity and dignity, deserving your respectful attention and effort. This principle recognizes that correctly pronouncing names shows basic respect for individuals and their cultural backgrounds. Many people feel uncomfortable asking about name pronunciation, worried about seeming ignorant or drawing attention to differences. They might avoid using the person's name entirely, use a shortened version without permission, or continue mispronouncing it rather than asking for correction. These approaches, while meant to avoid awkwardness, actually show less respect than honest inquiry about proper pronunciation. Asking twice demonstrates genuine commitment to getting it right. The first ask shows you care enough to try. If you still feel uncertain after the initial explanation, asking again shows that accuracy matters more to you than appearing competent immediately. I want to make sure I'm saying your name correctly. Could you say it once more? This approach signals respect and authentic interest in the person. Most people appreciate the effort, even if it takes multiple attempts. They recognize that you value them enough to invest time in learning something important to their identity. This small act often creates positive impressions that last much longer than the brief moment of learning. The practice also applies to names from unfamiliar cultures, unusual spellings, or family names with specific pronunciations. Taking time to learn these correctly shows cultural sensitivity and personal respect that build stronger relationships from the very beginning. Let them cancel, no guilt required. Let them cancel, no guilt required means accepting when others need to change or cancel plans without making them feel bad about their decision, understanding that people have valid reasons for needing flexibility even when they cannot fully explain them. It represents the practice of gracious accommodation that prioritizes relationships over rigid expectations. This principle recognizes that guilt-free cancellation creates safety for people to be honest about their needs and limitations. Many people respond to cancellations with disappointment, guilt-inducing comments, or passive-aggressive behavior that makes the canceling person feel worse about their decision. But I already made reservations, or, you always do this, or, I guess I'll just stay home alone, are responses that add emotional burden to someone who is already dealing with whatever prompted their need to cancel. Letting people cancel without guilt means responding with understanding and flexibility. No problem, let's reschedule when it works better for you. Thanks for letting me know. Hope everything is okay. We can do this another time. These responses show that you value the relationship more than the specific plan and trust that they have good reasons for their decision. This approach recognizes that people cancel for many valid reasons they might not feel comfortable sharing. They could be dealing with health issues, family problems, financial constraints, mental health challenges, or simply feeling overwhelmed. Requiring detailed explanations or expressing disappointment adds pressure that can damage relationships. Creating guilt-free cancellation policies in your relationships encourages honesty and reduces anxiety around making plans. People feel safer committing to activities when they know you will understand if circumstances change. This flexibility often results in better quality time together when plans do work out. Ask if they want advice or just space. Ask if they want advice or just space means checking with someone about what kind of support they need when they share problems rather than assuming they want solutions or guidance. It represents the understanding that people have different needs when processing difficulties, and offering the wrong type of support can feel unhelpful or overwhelming. This principle recognizes that sometimes people need thinking room more than answers, and sometimes they need practical help more than emotional processing time. When someone shares a problem or struggle, the natural response often involves immediately offering advice, suggestions, or solutions. While this comes from genuine desire to help, it assumes the person wants and is ready for guidance. Sometimes people share difficulties because they need to process emotions, think through options independently, or simply feel heard and understood rather than directed toward specific actions. Asking directly eliminates guesswork and shows respect for their autonomy in handling their situation. Do you want me to brainstorm solutions with you, or would you prefer I just listen? Are you looking for advice, or do you need space to work through this yourself? How can I best support you with this? These questions honor their ability to know what they need most in the moment. Space might mean listening without judgment, offering presence without pressure, or simply acknowledging their struggle without trying to fix it. Advice might involve sharing experiences, suggesting resources, or helping them think through options and consequences. The key is following their lead rather than imposing your preferred way of helping. This approach builds trust because people feel respected in their problem-solving process and confident that you will provide the type of support they actually want. Protect what's sacred, even when subtle. Protect what's sacred, even when subtle means safeguarding the values, relationships, and principles that matter most to you through small, consistent actions rather than waiting for dramatic moments to defend them. It represents the understanding that sacred things are preserved through daily choices and gentle boundaries rather than only grand gestures or obvious confrontations. This principle recognizes that the most important protections often happen quietly and may go unnoticed by others. Sacred elements in life include core values, meaningful relationships, personal boundaries, family traditions, creative work, spiritual practices, or anything that gives your life deep meaning and purpose. These precious aspects of life face constant subtle pressures from busy schedules, social expectations, convenience, or gradual compromise that can erode them over time. Subtle protection looks like consistently choosing actions that honor what matters most even when no one notices. You decline invitations that conflict with family time. You maintain boundaries around your creative work despite pressure to be more available. You speak up gently when conversations mock things you value. You protect loved ones' privacy even in casual social settings. These protective actions often seem small individually but accumulate to preserve what matters most over years and decades. They prevent the gradual erosion that happens when sacred things are consistently deprioritized for seemingly reasonable but ultimately less important demands. The subtlety is important because heavy-handed protection can become rigid or alienating. Instead, you create space for what is sacred through gentle consistency, quiet boundaries, and thoughtful choices that may not draw attention but effectively maintain your priorities. Protecting what is sacred subtly ensures that your most important values and relationships remain intact despite life's competing pressures. Connect people by common ground. Connect people by common ground means introducing others to each other by highlighting shared interests, experiences, or values that can form the basis for meaningful relationships. It represents the skill of social bridge building that helps people discover connections they might not find on their own. This principle recognizes that facilitating connections between others creates stronger communities and often leads to relationships that enrich everyone involved. Many social interactions remain surface level because people do not realize they share important commonalities with others around them. They might sit through entire gatherings without discovering that someone else shares their passion for hiking, has children the same age, or grew up in the same region. These missed connections represent lost opportunities for friendship, collaboration, and mutual support. Connecting by common ground requires listening carefully to what people share about themselves and remembering details that might create bridges to others. Sarah, you mentioned you love pottery. Mike over there just started taking ceramics classes. John, you were talking about starting a garden. Lisa has an amazing vegetable garden and loves sharing tips. These introductions give people specific starting points for conversations. The practice works best when you highlight genuine similarities rather than forcing connections that do not really exist. Look for shared passions, similar life experiences, complementary skills, or common challenges that people could support each other through. The goal is creating authentic opportunities for relationship rather than superficial networking. This approach transforms you into a valuable social connector who helps build community around you. People appreciate being introduced to others who share their interests, and they often remember you as someone who helped facilitate meaningful relationships in their lives. Curate memories, not just milestones. Curate memories, not just milestones means intentionally creating and preserving meaningful moments from everyday experiences rather than only documenting major life events and achievements. It represents the understanding that the most treasured memories often come from ordinary days filled with love, laughter, and connection rather than from ceremonies or accomplishments. This principle recognizes that life's richness lies in accumulated small moments that deserve attention and preservation. Most people focus their memory-making efforts on obvious milestones like graduations, weddings, promotions, or vacations. They take photos at special events, create scrapbooks for major occasions, and celebrate achievements with fanfare. While these moments matter, this approach misses the daily experiences that actually form the foundation of a meaningful life. Memory curation involves noticing and capturing the small moments that make ordinary days special. The way morning light falls across the kitchen table during breakfast conversations. Inside jokes that develop during routine errands. Quiet moments of connection while doing mundane tasks together. The specific way someone laughs at unexpected moments. These seemingly insignificant experiences often become the memories people treasure most deeply. This practice might involve taking photos of everyday activities, writing brief notes about funny conversations, or simply pausing to fully experience beautiful ordinary moments. It means paying attention to the texture of daily life rather than rushing through routine experiences toward the next big event. Curating everyday memories creates a richer sense of life satisfaction because you develop appreciation for the present moment rather than always looking ahead to future milestones. This awareness transforms ordinary days into treasured experiences worth remembering and celebrating. Stay until the story finishes. Stay until the story finishes means remaining present and engaged when someone is sharing an experience or narrative, even when the conversation takes longer than expected or covers topics that do not directly interest you. It represents the commitment to honoring someone's need to be heard completely rather than cutting them off or showing impatience with their pace. This principle recognizes that stories often contain their most important elements at the end, and rushing people prevents full communication and connection. Many conversations get interrupted before completion because listeners become impatient, distracted, or assume they understand the point before the speaker finishes. They check phones, interject with their own stories, or give subtle signals that they want the conversation to move faster. These behaviors prevent people from sharing their complete thoughts and can leave important information unexpressed. Staying until stories finish requires patience and genuine curiosity about what someone is trying to communicate. You resist the urge to jump in with related experiences or solutions before they reach their conclusion. You maintain eye contact and engaged body language even when the story takes unexpected directions or includes details that seem irrelevant to you. Often the most meaningful part of someone's story comes at the end after they have provided necessary context and worked up courage to share vulnerable details. Interrupting or rushing them means missing the real message they needed to convey. The background details that seemed unnecessary often prove essential for understanding their actual point. This practice shows respect for the speaker's communication style and demonstrates that you value their perspective enough to receive it fully. People feel truly heard when allowed to complete their thoughts without time pressure or competition for speaking time. Notice the solo in crowd. Notice the solo in crowd means developing the awareness to spot someone who feels isolated even when surrounded by others. This rule is about cultivating empathy and social consciousness. It requires you to look beyond the surface. To see past the noise and activity. To recognize when someone is physically present but emotionally distant. In crowded spaces, it's easy to assume everyone is connected. Everyone is engaged. Everyone belongs. But loneliness doesn't require solitude. Some of the loneliest people stand in the middle of busy rooms. They smile when spoken to. They nod at appropriate moments. But their eyes tell a different story. This awareness is a superpower in human connection. When you notice someone standing slightly apart. When you see someone checking their phone repeatedly with no real purpose. When you observe someone who laughs a beat too late or speaks a little too loudly. These are signals. These are invitations for kindness. The solo in crowd might be the new person at work. The person at a party who knows only the host. The individual at a community event who came alone. They're not necessarily shy or antisocial. They might simply be navigating unfamiliar social territory. Noticing doesn't mean you must fix their situation. Sometimes acknowledgement is enough. A genuine smile. A brief conversation. An invitation to join a discussion. Small gestures that say, I see you. You matter. You belong here too. Replace, let me know, with specific offer. Replace, let me know, with specific offer means transforming vague promises into concrete actions. This rule recognizes that good intentions without clear pathways often lead nowhere. When someone faces difficulty, the phrase, let me know if you need anything, feels caring. But it places the burden back on the person who's already struggling. Think about when you've been overwhelmed. Sick with flu. Dealing with loss. Managing a crisis. The last thing you want is to make more decisions. To figure out what help you need. To reach out and ask for specific assistance. Let me know becomes another task on an impossible list. Specific offers remove barriers. Instead of, let me know if you need food, try, I'm making soup tomorrow. Can I bring you some? Instead of, call if you need help with the kids, offer, I can pick up your children from school Thursday. What time works? Instead of, reach out if you need to talk, suggest, I'm free Saturday afternoon. Want to grab coffee? Specific offers show you've thought about their situation. You've considered what might genuinely help. You've removed the mental energy required to translate vague support into actual assistance. You've made it easy to say yes. You've also made it easy to say no without feeling guilty. This approach transforms passive empathy into active support. It moves beyond good intentions toward meaningful action. It demonstrates that you understand their needs well enough to suggest solutions. It shows you're willing to commit time and energy, not just offer empty words. Merge like a zipper, not a joust. Merge like a zipper, not a joust means approaching situations that require cooperation with alternating fairness rather than aggressive competition. This rule applies to traffic, conversations, and life decisions. It's about understanding that most interactions work better when people take turns. When they show mutual respect. When they prioritize flow over dominance. In traffic, zipper merging is efficient. One car from each lane. Alternating. Smooth. Fair. Everyone gets where they're going. No one gets stuck indefinitely. No one cuts in line aggressively. No one blocks others out of spite. The system works when everyone follows the same principle. Jousting assumes conflict. It's about charging forward. Claiming territory. Proving superiority. It creates winners and losers. It generates resentment. It slows everything down because people dig in. They resist. They retaliate. What should be simple cooperation becomes complicated warfare. This principle extends beyond driving. In meetings, let others speak before jumping in again. In relationships, take turns being the one who compromises. In conversations, alternate between talking and listening. In group decisions, ensure everyone gets input before anyone dominates. Zipper thinking requires patience. It requires trust that others will also play fair. It requires releasing the need to always go first. To always get your way. To always prove your point immediately. It means believing that cooperation creates better outcomes than competition. The zipper approach builds goodwill. It creates systems that work for everyone. It reduces stress and conflict. It demonstrates maturity and social awareness. Don't interrupt joy with skepticism. Don't interrupt joy with skepticism means learning when to let happiness exist without analysis. This rule recognizes that joy is precious and fragile. It doesn't always need to be questioned. Examined. Verified. Sometimes it simply needs to be celebrated and protected. When someone shares good news, your first instinct might be caution. Are you sure that job is right for you? Don't you think you're moving too fast? What if it doesn't work out? These responses come from caring. From wanting to protect. But they can deflate excitement faster than puncturing a balloon. Joy has its own intelligence. People experiencing genuine happiness have usually considered the risks. They've weighed the options. They've made their peace with uncertainty. Your skepticism, however well-intentioned, suggests they haven't thought things through. It implies their judgment is flawed. It steals energy from celebration and redirects it toward doubt. This doesn't mean abandoning all critical thinking. If someone's joy comes from genuinely harmful decisions, gentle questions might be appropriate. But most happiness doesn't require immediate intervention. Most excitement can coexist with reasonable risk. Instead of leading with concerns, try leading with curiosity. Tell me what excites you most about this. What drew you to this decision? How are you feeling about everything? These questions allow space for both joy and wisdom. They let people share their reasoning without feeling attacked. Sometimes people need permission to be happy. Your skepticism might be the voice they're already fighting in their own head. Choose to be the voice that says joy is allowed. Lead with questions, not conclusions. Lead with questions, not conclusions means approaching situations with curiosity before judgment. This rule acknowledges that first impressions are often incomplete. That initial assumptions can be wrong. That understanding requires investigation, not immediate verdict. When you encounter behavior that seems strange, your brain quickly creates explanations. That person is rude. That decision is stupid. That approach won't work. These conclusions feel satisfying because they create order from confusion. They give you something to react to. But they often close off learning opportunities. Questions open possibilities. I wonder why they chose that approach. What information might they have that I don't? What pressures might be influencing this situation? Questions assume there's more to discover. They create space for understanding. They acknowledge the complexity of human motivation. Leading with questions doesn't mean abandoning your judgment forever. It means delaying judgment until you have better information. It means recognizing that your perspective is one piece of a larger puzzle. It means staying curious long enough to see what you might have missed initially. This approach improves relationships. People feel heard when you ask about their reasoning rather than immediately critiquing their choices. They're more likely to explain their thinking. To share important context. To consider your perspective in return. Questions also improve your own decision-making. They help you gather information before forming opinions. They prevent you from acting on incomplete understanding. They keep you humble about the limits of your initial perspective. Hold the elevator, even rushed. Hold the elevator, even when rushed means prioritizing small kindnesses over personal convenience. This rule tests your character when it's easiest to be selfish. When you're late. When you're stressed. When helping others feels like it costs too much. Rushing creates tunnel vision. You focus on your destination. Your timeline. Your urgency. Other people become obstacles to navigate around rather than humans deserving consideration. The elevator doors closing becomes a relief, not a moment to choose kindness. But someone running toward the elevator has their own urgency. Their own important destination. Their own timeline that matters to them just as much as yours matters to you. Holding the door adds maybe 30 seconds to your journey. But it might save them several minutes of waiting. This small act demonstrates something larger about your character. It shows you can see beyond your immediate needs. That you believe other people's time has value. That small inconveniences are worth accepting to help others. That being part of a community means occasionally slowing down for mutual benefit. The rushing person might not even thank you. They might be distracted by their own problems. But that's not why you hold the door. You do it because kindness doesn't require recognition. Because doing the right thing when it's inconvenient builds the muscle of integrity. These micro moments of choice define who you are more than grand gestures. They happen when no one is watching. When there's no reward except knowing you chose to be helpful instead of self-focused. Don't ask heavy questions at the end. Don't ask heavy questions at the end means respecting the natural rhythm of interactions and emotional energy. This rule recognizes that timing affects how well people can process difficult topics. That ending conversations with weighty subjects leaves people unsettled. That serious discussions need space to breathe and resolve. Heavy questions are those that require emotional processing. How are you handling your divorce? Are you worried about your job security? Do you think your relationship is working? These topics deserve attention. They matter deeply. But they also drain energy and create anxiety. Asking these questions when someone is leaving creates an unfair situation. They don't have time to fully explore their thoughts. They can't work through the emotions that arise. They're forced to either give superficial answers or carry unfinished feelings with them. Either option feels unsatisfying. Heavy conversations need beginnings and middles, not just endings. They require space to develop. Room to explore nuance. Time to process reactions. Opportunity to ask follow-up questions. Chance to offer support or perspective. When you ask serious questions at the end, you deny both people these necessary elements. Better timing honors the importance of difficult topics. It shows you want to really listen, not just ask. It demonstrates that you have energy to engage with their answers. It creates space for genuine connection rather than drive-by concern. If something weighs on your mind, schedule a proper conversation. Don't squeeze it into closing moments. Zoom out. Zoom out means deliberately expanding your perspective when you're stuck in immediate problems. This rule encourages stepping back from current difficulties to see the bigger picture. To remember that most crises are temporary. That current problems rarely define entire lives. That perspective is often the difference between panic and peace. When you're deep in a challenging situation, everything feels enormous. The deadline looms impossibly large. The conflict seems world-ending. The mistake appears permanently damaging. Your view becomes microscopic, focused entirely on immediate pain or pressure. This narrow focus amplifies stress and reduces problem-solving ability. Zooming out asks different questions. How will this matter in a year? What would I tell a friend facing this same situation? What opportunities might emerge from this challenge? What am I learning that will help me later? These questions don't minimize current difficulties, but they restore proportion. Time perspective is particularly powerful. Most things that feel urgent today will be forgotten next month. Most mistakes can be corrected or forgiven. Most conflicts can be resolved or outlasted. Most setbacks become setups for something better. This isn't toxic positivity. It's realistic assessment based on how life actually unfolds. Zooming out also means considering other people's perspectives. Your crisis might be their minor inconvenience. Your earth-shattering news might barely register in their busy lives. This isn't dismissive. It's liberating. It reduces the pressure you put on yourself when you realize the world isn't watching your every move. Let exit conversation gently. Let exit conversation gently means allowing interactions to end naturally without forcing continuation. This rule recognizes that all conversations have lifespans. That trying to extend them artificially creates discomfort. That graceful endings preserve good feelings and leave room for future connection. Some conversations flow effortlessly for hours. Others complete their purpose in minutes. Fighting against natural rhythms makes everyone uncomfortable. When someone gives signals they're ready to wrap up, pushing forward feels intrusive. When energy shifts toward closure, respecting that shift shows social awareness. Gentle exits require reading subtle cues. People check phones more frequently. They shift their body position. They summarize points instead of exploring new ones. They mention other commitments. They use closing phrases like, well, or anyway, or I should probably. These aren't rejections. They're natural transitions. Forcing conversations beyond their natural endpoint often comes from anxiety. Fear that ending means rejection. Worry that you haven't said everything important. Concern that opportunities are slipping away. But rushed final thoughts rarely add value. Overstaying usually creates negative associations rather than positive memories. Gentle exits can actually strengthen relationships. They show you respect others' time and energy. They demonstrate that you can read social situations accurately. They leave people feeling good about the interaction rather than trapped or drained. They create anticipation for future conversations rather than exhaustion. Learning to end well is as important as learning to begin well. Smile at someone alone. Smile at someone alone means offering acknowledgement and warmth to people who might feel invisible. This rule recognizes that solitude can become loneliness when it feels forced or endless. That small gestures of recognition can shift someone's entire day. That human connection doesn't always require conversation. Being alone in public spaces can feel isolating. Eating at restaurants solo. Walking through busy areas without companions. Sitting in waiting rooms with no one to talk to. In these moments, people can start feeling forgotten. Unimportant. Invisible to the world around them. A genuine smile costs nothing but can mean everything. It says, I see you. You matter. You're part of this shared human experience. It doesn't require conversation or ongoing interaction. It simply acknowledges another person's existence with warmth rather than indifference. The smile needs to be authentic, not performed. Forced cheerfulness feels hollow and might make someone more uncomfortable. But genuine recognition, even brief, can lift spirits and restore connection to community. It reminds both people that kindness exists in random places. This gesture is particularly powerful for elderly people, who might feel increasingly invisible as they age. For people with disabilities, who often report feeling overlooked. For anyone who appears to be struggling or seems withdrawn. Your smile might be the only positive human interaction they receive that day. The beauty of this rule is its simplicity. No special skills required. No money needed. No significant time investment. Just the willingness to see others and let them know they've been seen. Don't ask, what's wrong, if you won't sit with the answer. Don't ask, what's wrong, if you won't sit with the answer means taking responsibility for the conversations you initiate. This rule acknowledges that asking personal questions creates obligations. That opening emotional doors requires willingness to enter the rooms beyond them. That genuine care involves more than curious inquiry. What's wrong, seems like caring question. It shows you've noticed someone's distress. It offers opportunity for them to share their burden. But it also opens floodgates you might not be prepared to handle. Real problems require real responses. Genuine struggles need genuine support. If someone is truly struggling, their answer might be complicated. Messy. Time-consuming. Emotionally demanding. They might talk about depression. Relationship problems. Financial stress. Health scares. Family conflicts. Work difficulties. These aren't topics you can address with quick fixes or cheerful platitudes. Asking the question implies you have capacity to handle the response. That you're prepared to listen fully. To offer appropriate support. To sit with discomfort without immediately trying to solve or dismiss. That you understand some problems don't have easy solutions. If you genuinely care and have time to engage, the question can be helpful. But if you're asking out of social obligation or passing curiosity, it can be harmful. People who are struggling don't need to perform emotional labor for your comfort. They don't need to minimize their problems to make you feel better about asking. Better to offer specific support or simply acknowledge that you notice they seem down without demanding explanation. Silence isn't indifference. Silence isn't indifference means understanding that quiet responses don't always indicate lack of caring. This rule challenges assumptions about how people express concern or interest. It recognizes that communication styles vary widely. That some people process internally before speaking. That absence of words doesn't equal absence of feeling. In conversations about problems or emotions, silence often feels uncomfortable. You share something difficult and receive no immediate response. The quiet stretches. You start wondering if the person heard you. If they care. If they're judging you. If they want to escape the conversation. The urge to fill silence with more words becomes overwhelming. But silence can indicate deep engagement. Some people need time to process what they've heard before responding thoughtfully. They want to understand fully before offering reactions. They're considering multiple perspectives. They're choosing words carefully. They're feeling the weight of what you've shared. Rushing to fill quiet moments with chatter can actually interrupt important processing. It can prevent thoughtful responses. It can make the conversation more about managing anxiety than genuine communication. Sometimes the most caring thing someone can do is sit quietly with difficult information. This doesn't mean all silence is productive. Some people do withdraw when they don't know how to respond. Some quiet comes from discomfort or disengagement. But distinguishing between different types of silence requires patience and observation rather than immediate assumptions. Learning to be comfortable with conversational pauses allows space for deeper connection and more meaningful exchanges. Describe impact before intent. Describe impact before intent means acknowledging how your actions affected others before explaining what you meant to do. This rule recognizes that good intentions don't erase harmful outcomes. That people experience your impact regardless of your purpose. That taking responsibility starts with understanding consequences, not defending motives. When something goes wrong, the natural response is explaining your reasoning. I didn't mean it that way. That's not what I intended. You're misunderstanding my point. These responses prioritize your internal experience over the other person's lived reality. They suggest that your intentions matter more than their pain. Impact-first communication flips this approach. Start by acknowledging what happened from their perspective. I can see that my comment hurt your feelings. I realize my decision created extra work for you. I understand that my actions made you feel excluded. This validation doesn't require agreeing with every interpretation, but it honors their experience as real and important. After acknowledging impact, you can share your intentions. But this order matters enormously. Leading with intent sounds defensive. It implies the other person shouldn't feel hurt because you meant well. Following impact with intent shows you understand that good intentions don't automatically create good outcomes. This approach builds trust because it demonstrates emotional maturity. It shows you can separate your self-image from your behavior's effects. It proves you care more about relationships than being right. It creates space for genuine apology and repair rather than explanation and justification. Make space for late bloomers. Make space for late bloomers means recognizing that people develop at different paces and refusing to write anyone off prematurely. This rule challenges timeline pressure in a world obsessed with early achievement. It acknowledges that wisdom, talent, and success can emerge at any age. That some of the most meaningful contributions come from people who found their path later in life. Society celebrates young prodigies. The teenage entrepreneur. The college graduate with immediate career clarity. The person who found their soulmate at 25. These stories create pressure to achieve everything early. They suggest that delayed development indicates lesser potential or personal failure. But human growth doesn't follow standard schedules. Some people need time to discover their strengths. Others require life experience before their talents mature. Many face obstacles that delay traditional milestones through no fault of their own. Economic challenges. Family responsibilities. Health issues. Personal struggles that require attention before other growth can happen. Late bloomers often bring unique perspectives precisely because they've traveled different paths. They've developed resilience through overcoming challenges. They've gained empathy through struggle. They've learned lessons that can't be taught in classrooms or acquired through early success alone. Making space means resisting the urge to categorize people based on current achievements. It means staying curious about potential that hasn't yet manifested. It means offering encouragement to people exploring new directions at any age. It means believing that growth continues throughout life, not just in youth. Empathy grows by asking. Empathy grows by asking means that genuine understanding develops through curious inquiry rather than assumptions. This rule recognizes that empathy isn't automatic or innate for most situations. That truly understanding others requires active effort. That asking questions demonstrates care and creates opportunities for deeper connection. Many people believe empathy means imagining how you would feel in someone else's situation. But this approach often projects your own experiences onto their circumstances. Your background, personality, and coping mechanisms might be completely different from theirs. What would devastate you might barely affect them. What seems simple to you might feel overwhelming to them. Real empathy requires learning about their specific experience. Their particular challenges. Their unique perspective. Their individual context. This information comes through questions, not assumptions. How did that feel for you? What's been the hardest part? What would be most helpful right now? What am I not understanding? These questions need to come from genuine curiosity, not interrogation. The goal is understanding, not gathering ammunition for advice giving. Sometimes people just need to be heard and acknowledged. Sometimes they want practical suggestions. Sometimes they need emotional support. You can't know which without asking. Asking also prevents the common mistake of solving problems that don't exist or aren't priorities. Your brilliant solution might address something they're not worried about while missing what actually concerns them. Questions help you align your support with their actual needs rather than your assumptions about their needs. Credit sources, history forgets. Credit sources, history forgets means acknowledging where ideas, information, and inspiration come from because accurate attribution gets lost over time. This rule recognizes that knowledge builds on previous knowledge. That creativity emerges from combining existing elements in new ways. That giving credit strengthens the entire system of learning and innovation. Ideas rarely emerge from nothing. They build on conversations. Research. Previous work. Inspiration from others. Lessons learned from mentors. Insights gained from books, articles, experiences, and relationships. When you share these ideas without attribution, you accidentally erase the contributions of others. This erasure happens gradually and often unintentionally. You read something interesting. It influences your thinking. Months later, you share the concept but can't remember exactly where you encountered it. It feels like your own insight because it's been processed through your experience. But someone else deserves recognition for the original contribution. History compounds this problem. Stories get retold without full context. Discoveries get simplified. Complex collaborations become single-person narratives. Important contributors get forgotten, especially if they belong to marginalized groups or worked behind the scenes. Each retelling removes another layer of accurate attribution. Crediting sources does more than ensure fairness. It helps others learn by providing pathways to additional information. It demonstrates intellectual humility by acknowledging that your ideas build on others' work. It models good practice for people learning from you. It strengthens the ecosystem of knowledge sharing by showing that contribution gets recognized. Kindness over being right. Kindness over being right means prioritizing relationships and human dignity over winning arguments or proving points. This rule acknowledges that being correct doesn't automatically make you helpful. That sometimes the most accurate response is also the most harmful one. That wisdom involves knowing when to share knowledge and when to practice restraint. The urge to correct others runs deep. When someone states incorrect information, your brain immediately wants to fix it. When they misremember details, you want to provide accuracy. When they draw wrong conclusions, you want to redirect their thinking. This impulse comes from good places. Desire for truth. Respect for facts. Belief that accuracy matters. But being right at the wrong time can damage relationships. Correcting someone in front of others can embarrass them. Insisting on accuracy during emotional conversations can feel dismissive. Always playing the expert role can make others feel inadequate or annoying. Sometimes people need support more than information. Choosing kindness doesn't mean abandoning truth entirely. It means considering context, timing, and impact before speaking. It means asking whether your correction serves their well-being or just your need to be accurate. It means finding gentle ways to share information when accuracy truly matters. This principle is especially important with loved ones. Your family doesn't need constant fact-checking. Your friends don't need perpetual education. Your partner doesn't need you to win every debate. They need to feel heard, valued, and respected even when they're wrong about small things. Allow anger without fixing. Allow anger without fixing means giving people space to experience and express their emotions without immediately trying to change, solve, or minimize their feelings. This rule recognizes that anger often serves important purposes. That rushing to fix or calm someone can actually invalidate their experience. That emotions need time and space to be fully felt before they can be processed and released. When someone expresses anger, the instinct is often to make it stop. To find solutions. To offer different perspectives. To suggest calming techniques. To point out silver linings. These responses come from caring and discomfort with others' pain. But they can communicate that their feelings are wrong or inappropriate. Anger frequently contains important information. It might signal boundary violations. Unmet needs. Injustices that require attention. Values that are being threatened. Relationships that need repair. When you rush to eliminate the anger, you might miss these crucial messages. You might also prevent the person from fully understanding what they're experiencing. Allowing anger doesn't mean encouraging destructive expression. Physical violence, verbal abuse, and harmful behavior still need boundaries. But you can acknowledge someone's right to feel angry while maintaining limits on how they express those feelings. I can see you're really upset about this. Help me understand what's bothering you most. Sometimes people need to vent before they can think clearly. They need to feel heard before they can consider solutions. They need validation before they can move toward forgiveness or problem solving. Your job isn't always to fix. Sometimes it's simply to witness and support. Your reaction is what stays. Your reaction is what stays means understanding that people remember how you respond to situations more than the situations themselves. This rule recognizes that your emotional responses create lasting impressions. That your reaction in difficult moments defines relationships. That how you handle stress, conflict, and challenges becomes part of your reputation and legacy. Events happen to everyone. Mistakes occur. Crises arise. Disappointments unfold. Conflicts emerge. What varies dramatically is how people respond to these situations. Some react with grace under pressure. Others become defensive or aggressive. Some find constructive solutions. Others blame and complain. Some maintain perspective. Others spiral into drama. Your reactions reveal your character more clearly than your words or intentions. They show how you handle adversity. Whether you can stay calm when challenged. How you treat others when you're stressed. Whether you take responsibility or deflect blame. How quickly you recover from setbacks. These behaviors create lasting memories in others' minds. Children especially remember parental reactions. They might forget what they did wrong, but they remember whether you responded with anger or patience. With understanding or judgment. With problem solving or punishment. Your reactions teach them how to handle their own difficult emotions and situations. Professional relationships also depend heavily on your reactions. Colleagues remember who stays professional under pressure. Who remains collaborative during conflicts. Who takes feedback gracefully. Who supports others during challenges. These reactions determine trust, respect, and future opportunities more than technical skills alone. Live to lighten, not to load. Live to lighten, not to load means choosing to add positive energy to situations rather than increasing burden, stress, or negativity. This rule is about recognizing that every interaction either adds weight to someone's day or helps lift it. That your presence and words can either make life feel heavier or more manageable for others. Loading happens in many ways. Complaining constantly about minor problems. Bringing drama to peaceful situations. Adding stress through unnecessary urgency. Creating conflict where none existed. Demanding attention during others' difficult moments. Making everything about your problems. These behaviors increase the emotional and mental load others carry. Lightning doesn't require being artificially cheerful or ignoring real problems. It means approaching situations with constructive energy. Offering help instead of just observing struggles. Finding humor without minimizing pain. Bringing calm presence to chaotic moments. Listening without immediately sharing your own similar stories. Contributing solutions rather than just identifying problems. This principle applies to both big and small moments. In conversations, you can lighten by asking thoughtful questions rather than dominating discussion. In groups, you can lighten by including quiet people rather than hogging attention. In conflicts, you can lighten by seeking understanding rather than proving points. In daily interactions, you can lighten by being genuinely interested in others rather than just waiting for your turn to speak. Living to lighten becomes a practice that transforms both your relationships and your own experience. When you focus on adding value to others' lives, you often find more meaning and satisfaction in your own. Reply all only if every I cares. Reply all only if every I cares means being selective about mass communications and considering whether your message truly benefits everyone who will receive it. This rule addresses digital courtesy and information overload. It recognizes that people's attention and time have value. That unnecessary communications create mental clutter and waste collective energy. Reply all seems efficient when you want to share information with a group. But most replies don't need to reach everyone on the original email. Your question might be relevant only to the sender. Your thank you, while polite, doesn't require 15 people to read it. Your clarification might matter to 2 people, not the entire team. Before hitting reply all, ask specific questions. Does everyone need this information to do their job? Will this message help every recipient in some meaningful way? Or are you including everyone because it's easier than selecting specific people? Is this more about covering yourself than serving others? Mass communications should add value for mass audiences. Important updates that affect everyone. Decisions that change group processes. Information that multiple people requested. Resources that benefit the whole team. These messages justify broad distribution because they serve everyone who receives them. The principle extends beyond email to group texts, social media posts, and meeting communications. Consider your audience before sharing. Ask whether your contribution enhances the collective experience or just adds noise. Respect others' time by being intentional about when you claim their attention. Don't punish vulnerability. Don't punish vulnerability means responding supportively when people share personal information, admit mistakes, or show emotional openness. This rule recognizes that vulnerability requires courage. That people who open up are taking risks. That your response determines whether they'll continue being honest with you and others. Vulnerability gets punished in many subtle ways. When someone admits a mistake and you respond with, "I told you so." When they share fears and you dismiss them as irrational. When they express emotions and you tell them to calm down. When they ask for help and you make them feel stupid for not knowing. These reactions shut down openness and damage trust. People often share vulnerable information as tests. They're assessing whether you're safe to trust with bigger revelations. Whether you'll judge them harshly. Whether you'll use their honesty against them later. Whether you can handle their full humanity, including imperfections and struggles. Your initial response sets the tone for all future sharing. Punishing vulnerability has broader consequences beyond individual relationships. It teaches people to hide problems instead of seeking help. It encourages pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It creates cultures where mistakes get covered up rather than addressed. It prevents the authentic connections that make life meaningful. Supporting vulnerability means responding with curiosity rather than judgment. With appreciation for their honesty rather than criticism of their choices. With helpful resources rather than obvious advice. With emotional support rather than immediate solutions. This creates safety for continued openness and deeper relationship. Show vulnerability, invite growth. Show vulnerability, invite growth means that sharing your own struggles, uncertainties, and mistakes creates opportunities for others to learn and develop. This rule recognizes that perfectionism is not inspirational. That people connect more with authenticity than achievement. That showing your humanity gives others permission to be human too. Many people hide their difficulties, believing this protects their reputation or helps others feel better. But perfect facades often create distance rather than connection. When you only share successes, others assume you don't face similar challenges. They feel isolated in their struggles. They believe their problems indicate personal failure rather than normal human experience. Vulnerability invites growth by normalizing the learning process. When you share how you overcame challenges, others see practical examples of resilience. When you admit current struggles, others feel less alone in theirs. When you acknowledge mistakes, others feel safer admitting their own. This creates environments where growth feels possible rather than shameful. The key is sharing appropriately and purposefully. Not oversharing personal details that make others uncomfortable. Not using vulnerability as manipulation or attention-seeking. But thoughtfully revealing aspects of your experience that might help others feel less alone or more capable of handling their own difficulties. This principle applies to leadership, parenting, teaching, and friendship. People need models of imperfect humans navigating life successfully. They need to see that struggle doesn't disqualify you from success. They need examples of people who faced similar challenges and found ways forward. Don't laugh first at your jokes. Don't laugh first at your jokes means allowing others to respond naturally to your humor before showing your own amusement. This rule recognizes that laughter is contagious but forced laughter is obvious. That humor works best when it feels organic rather than performed. That your own reaction can influence whether others find something genuinely funny or feel pressured to laugh. When you laugh at your own joke immediately, several things happen. You signal that you think you're funny, which can feel presumptuous. You create pressure for others to match your enthusiasm. You interrupt the natural timing that allows humor to land properly. You might be filling awkward silence that would actually help the joke work better. Confident humor trusts the audience to respond authentically. It gives people space to process what you've said. To decide for themselves whether it's amusing. To laugh because they genuinely find it funny, not because you've demonstrated that they should. This creates more genuine connection because their laughter feels real rather than obligatory. Sometimes your jokes won't land. The silence might feel uncomfortable. But laughing at your own material doesn't fix unsuccessful humor. It often makes the situation more awkward by highlighting that your attempt didn't work. Better to let moments pass naturally and move on to other topics. This principle extends beyond formal joke-telling to everyday humor. Witty comments. Playful observations. Sarcastic remarks. All benefit from space to breathe before you reveal how clever you think you've been. Let others discover the humor first. Their authentic response will tell you whether you've actually been funny. Let them outgrow your memory. Let them outgrow your memory means allowing people to evolve beyond the versions of themselves you remember. This rule recognizes that humans change constantly. That holding on to old impressions prevents you from seeing current reality. That your memory of someone might be limiting their growth or your relationship with them. People get stuck in your mind at specific moments. The colleague who was disorganized 5 years ago. The friend who was unreliable in college. The family member who struggled with confidence as a teenager. These snapshots feel true because they're based on real experiences. But they might no longer reflect who these people have become. Refusing to update your mental image creates problems. You might not trust someone who has actually become trustworthy. You might offer help to someone who no longer needs it. You might avoid opportunities with someone who has developed skills you don't recognize. You might treat an adult like the child you remember them being. Everyone deserves the chance to grow beyond their past mistakes, limitations, and struggles. This includes the awkward phase everyone goes through. The period when they were learning new skills. The time when they were dealing with personal challenges that affected their behavior. The moments when they made poor decisions they've since learned from. Letting people outgrow your memory requires conscious effort. Staying curious about who they are now rather than assuming they're still who they were. Asking questions about their current interests and goals. Noticing changes in their behavior and capabilities. Giving them opportunities to demonstrate growth rather than keeping them locked in old roles. Answer the call, even awkward. Answer the call, even awkward means responding to people who reach out to you, especially when the timing feels inconvenient or the relationship feels complicated. This rule recognizes that reaching out takes courage. That people usually call during difficult moments. That your response might be more important than you realize. Awkward calls come in many forms. The friend you haven't spoken to in months who suddenly needs support. The family member who only contacts you when they're in crisis. The acquaintance who calls at inconvenient times. The person with whom you had a minor conflict who's trying to reconnect. Your first instinct might be to avoid these conversations. But people usually call when they're struggling. When they need connection. When they've exhausted other options. When they're facing something they can't handle alone. The awkwardness you feel about timing or relationship dynamics is usually less important than whatever prompted them to reach out. Answering doesn't mean you must solve their problems or commit to lengthy conversations. It means giving them a chance to be heard. To feel less alone. To know that someone cares enough to pick up the phone. Sometimes a brief conversation provides exactly what they need to move forward. The calls you avoid answering often become bigger regrets than the ones you take. You might miss opportunities to repair relationships. To provide crucial support during someone's darkest moment. To reconnect with people who matter to you. To be the lifeline someone desperately needs. If truly can't talk, answer briefly and suggest a better time. But don't let awkwardness prevent you from being present for others. Confidence embraces imperfection. Confidence embraces imperfection means understanding that true self-assurance comes from accepting your flaws rather than hiding them. This rule recognizes that perfectionism is actually a form of insecurity. That people who seem most confident are often those who acknowledge their limitations openly. That trying to appear flawless creates more anxiety than embracing authenticity. Many people believe confidence requires having everything figured out. Never making mistakes. Always knowing the right answer. always looking polished and prepared. This creates exhausting pressure to maintain impossible standards. It also creates fragile confidence that crumbles the moment imperfections become visible. Real confidence accepts that everyone has weaknesses. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has areas where they're still learning. Everyone has days when they don't feel their best. Everyone struggles with something. This acceptance creates stable confidence because it's based on reality rather than performance. When you embrace imperfection, you stop wasting energy trying to hide normal human experiences. You can admit when you don't know something instead of pretending expertise. You can ask for help instead of struggling alone. You can try new things without guaranteeing success. You can be yourself instead of performing an idealized version. This approach actually makes you more attractive to others. People connect with authenticity more than perfection. They trust people who acknowledge mistakes. They feel comfortable around people who don't seem to have unrealistic standards. They want to spend time with people who make them feel accepted as they are. Confident imperfection says, "I'm good enough as I am while still growing and learning." It's strength through self-acceptance rather than strength through self-improvement alone.